Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
However, after thinking about it for a while, Sanji still obediently went over. Because getting beaten up makes him stronger, so let the storm rage on. He took a deep breath and crushed the half-smoked cigarette into the sole of his shoe. Garlic bird, he muttered under his breath, straightening his crooked tie, and strode towards Luffy with a death-defying air. Anyway, getting beaten up makes me stronger, Zor. Holding his sword chuckled to himself, finally realized your true nature as a punching bag. Shut up, you green-haired moss. Sanji's shoes sparked as they scraped against the cobblestones. Once I unlock my new skill, you'll be the first one I beat up. Luffy couldn't wait any longer and assumed his fighting stance. His right fist once again enveloped in dark armament haki, Sanji. Here I come, enough talk. Sanji assumed a defensive stance, his right leg slightly retreating. Remember to hit the left side. Your right shoulder injured by the fishman isn't. Rubber, armored straight punch, bang. Before Sanji could finish speaking, he was sent flying like a cannonball. His body traced a graceful parabola in the air, crashing through 3 coconut trees before crashing heavily into the orange grove. Cough, cough, Sanji crawled up from a pile of oranges, spat out the leaves from his mouth, and immediately felt as if his internal organs were about to shatter. The intense pain was just too much. Although the body can recover from any kind of beating, the pain is real. Just then, ding. The beating mission is complete. Reward, leg-modified human gene awakening progress plus 10%. Current awakening progress, 10%. Effects increased bone density. Muscle fiber restructuring in progress. A warm current suddenly surged from his spine to his legs. To Sanji's surprise, the pain from the impact was rapidly subsiding. Even more miraculously, he could clearly feel his leg bones undergoing some kind of transformation. As if metal was flowing through his bone marrow, this is. He tentatively kicked the boulder beside him, boom. The rock half a person's height shattered with a crash. Yet his leg didn't even have a bruise, wow. Luffy craned his neck to get closer. Sanji. Your legs are glowing indeed. A faint blue light shone through Sanji's trouser legs. He rolled up his trouser cuffs and discovered strange mechanical patterns appearing on his calves. But they disappeared in the blink of an eye. Zoro, who had appeared unnoticed, showed a rare expression of interest. What's going on? Did Luffy's punch cause a genetic mutation? No wonder your kicking talent is so monstrous. You're the pervert, Sanji retorted habitually, but then fell into deep thought. He remembered his father calling him a failure when he was a child. And those strange dreams from his childhood. Could it be that the Vinsmoke family's genetic modification was being activated by the beating system? Nami was completely out of touch. What are you guys talking about? Ron's voice came from behind them. It seems our chef still has many secrets to hide. Sanji hurriedly pulled down his trouser leg and lit a new cigarette to hide his panic. Stop prying into the chef's private life. He turned to Luffy again, this time go all out. Luffy nodded excitedly, simultaneously covering both fists with armament haki, gum. Wait, Usopp suddenly interrupted. Let me show off a little first. That way everyone can get the reward, rolls. Zoro had already turned and walked away. I'll go check if any fishmen have escaped. The setting sun painted the sea golden, and the group returned to shore-chatting and laughing, only to suddenly freeze in place. Their beloved Going Merry was now pitifully half-submerged in the shallows, its mainmast broken into its deck covered in charred marks, and the adorable lamb statue on its prow missing half its face. What's going on? This is our Going Merry. Usopp was completely dumbfounded. Meet my meat. Luffy's eyes were bloodshot. How could this be? Nami covered her mouth, her eyes filled with shock. She had already agreed to join Ron's pirate crew, but now The ship was gone, what was the point of joining? Usopp knelt on the ground, trembling as he touched the wounds on the ship's hull. It was done by the remnants of the Arlong pirates. Those despicable bastards. Zoro drew all three swords simultaneously. I'll go take them. Wait, Ron raised his hand to stop him. His navy blue cloak swaying gently in the evening breeze. No need amidst the puzzled gazes of the crowd. Ron walked to a flat rock on the shore suddenly. A blue data stream appeared at his fingertips, and a semi-transparent system interface unfolded in the air. Ding retrieve super luxury starship. Ron clicked confirm without hesitation and, in an instant, the seawater in the harbor surged violently, and a huge whirlpool appeared out of nowhere, splash, accompanied by the deafening roar of machinery colossal. Silver-white ship slowly rose from the whirlpool. The streamlined hull reflected the glow of the setting sun. Gun emplacements, watchtowers, and open-air baths were arranged in a staggered pattern on the three decks. The most striking feature was the figurehead, a starbird with outstretched wings, its eyes set with dazzling sapphires. Most importantly, the entire ship is sparkly. This is. Nami's navigator's intuition allowed her to instantly calculate the ship's specifications, 68 meters in length. Displacement. This far exceeded the scope of an ordinary two-masted sailing ship. Usopp's jaw slammed against his feet. Am I dreaming? A ship grew out of the sea. The captain's abilities are terrifying. Sanji's cigarette fell to the ground again. Captain. Luffy excitedly stretched out his arms, his rubber body fluttering like a flag atop the starship's mainmast. This is awesome. 10 times bigger than the Going Merry. How much meat can it hold? Ron laughed. It's full of meat, help yourself. Wow. Brother Ron, you're so great. Luffy laughed and jumped onto the ship, heading straight for the galley. Zoro was the only one who remained relatively calm. He crossed his arms and said, as expected. The captain always manages to conjure up strange things. Nami mechanically turned to Ron, her voice trembling slightly. You just conjured a ship out of thin air. What kind of bizarre ability is that? It's outrageous. Ron explained simply, just a little trick. He pointed to the starship. Would you like to go up for a look? Miss Navigator, Nama, feeling dizzy, stepped onto the automatically descending gangway. As her palm touched the teak deck of the starship, a holographic control panel suddenly rose from the ground. Welcome aboard, Miss Nami. This vessel is equipped with magnetic field storage and recording pointer, weather forecasting instrument, holographic chart station. My God. Nami stroked the sophisticated instruments, her navigator instincts instantly making her understand the value of these devices. This ship, it's practically tailor-made for navigators. Usopp had already run aboard to explore. Look. There's an automatic barbecue machine. Wow. The medical room even has a fully automated operating table. Sanji stood in the spacious kitchen, stroking the gleaming stainless steel stove, tears welling in his eyes. This is where a chef should be. Zoro then lay down directly on the soft mats in the training room. Finally. I don't have to sleep on the deck anymore. Luffy ran from bow to stern, frantically scratching his head and yelling. Where's the meat? Where's my meat? Nami's fingertips lightly traced the gunwale. In the afterglow of the setting sun, a dazzling light suddenly stung her eyes. She squinted and peered closer, her breath catching in her throat. This is a diamond. Every few inches along the edging of the entire hull, a perfectly cut diamond is set, shimmering with a captivating light in the twilight. Nami walked along the ship's side as if in a dream, discovering that not only the edging, but also the wheel-handled compass base, and even the decorative studs on the stair railings, everywhere that might reflect light was inlaid with diamonds of varying sizes. 1, 2, 3, Nami's voice began to tremble, her short orange hair shaking with her rapid breathing. As a former little thief, she knew all too well the value of these diamonds. Just one of them could buy a small boat. Usopp leaned closer curiously. Nami, your face is so red. Don't touch it. Nami abruptly slapped Usopp's hand away, standing protectively in front of the ship's railing like a mother cat guarding her kittens. These diamonds will fall. Luffy poked his head out of the kitchen, his mouth stuffed with meat. Diamonds, can we eat them? Sanji gracefully approached, carrying a tray. Nami-san, Tilda, dinner is ready, Tilda, when he saw Nami engrossed in touching the diamond. His eyes immediately turned to hearts. Ah. Even her greedy expression is so beautiful. Zoro leaned against the training room door and sneered, "You idiot cook. Your nosebleed is flowing into the lobster bisque." Ron appeared on the upper deck at some point. "How's the ship? Do you like it, Miss Navigator?" Nami nodded vigorously. I love it so much." Her eyes had completely turned into Bailey's. "The whole ship is made of diamonds, not entirely." Ron snapped his fingers, and the deck suddenly became transparent, revealing a vast armory beneath. Only the surface decorations used 5.0 carats of diamonds, after all. He gave Nami a meaningful look. "We have to give our navigators some reason to stay." Nami's legs suddenly went weak, and she had to hold onto the diamond-encrusted railing to keep from kneeling. Her mind was already racing with calculations. 5,000 carats. At market price, if she secretly pried off a few. "I advise you not to get any funny ideas." Zoro stared at Nami's neck, a half-smile playing on his lips. "Every diamond on this ship is connected to an alarm system." He pointed to the crystal chandelier overhead. "See that blue light? The captain said anyone who dares to steal a diamond will be sunk to a depth of 10.0 meters by the alarm system." Nami's expression froze for a moment, but quickly brightened into a radiant smile. "How could that be, Tilda? I'm a full-fledged navigator now." She affectionately took Ron's arm. "Captain Tilda, where are we going next?" Usopp muttered under his breath. "Look. This is Nami's true face." Sanji's face was contorted with jealousy. "Let go of the captain. If you're going to hold hands, hold mine." As night fell, the diamonds on the starship transformed into a dazzling galaxy under the moonlight. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the orange grove of Kakasi village, Nami stood for a long time before Belamir's grave. She gently touched the tattoo on her left shoulder, which had once been the mark of Arlong's pirates, but had now been replaced by a windmill and orange design. "Belmel, I have finally fulfilled my promise to you." The sea breeze brushed through her hair, carrying the familiar citrus scent of her hometown. On the dock, Nijiko stuffed the meticulously prepared nautical atlas into Nami's bag. "These are the nautical charts of the East Daxia Sea that I've drawn over the years. They should be of some help." Her eyes were slightly red, but she smiled stubbornly. Nami suddenly hugged her older sister tightly, who always silently supported her, and felt the warmth of her sister's tears soaking her shoulders. "Time to set off," Ron shouted from the deck of the starship. Usopp was frantically adjusting the sails. Sanji poked his head out of the kitchen carrying a specially made orange pie. And Nami took a deep breath, looking back one last time at the village that held so many laughs and tears. The orange grove gleamed golden in the morning sun, and the sound of the windmills turning was like Belamir's gentle murmur. The moment the mooring ropes were untied, Nami nimbly leaped onto the deck. The sea breeze billowed the sails and lifted her short orange hair. "Set sail for the Grand Line," she raised her arm. Her eyes no longer filled with hesitation and fear, but with boundless anticipation for the unknown route. "Welcomes Navigator Nami, thank you everyone." "No need to thank me, this is what a partner should do." 3 days later, around noon on the main deck of the starship, the blazing sunlight pierced through the sea mist, refracting into iridescent patterns on the diamond-encrusted hull. The entire crew stood in neat rows, and even Zoro, who usually slept in late, was unusually punctual. Of course he fell asleep standing up. Usopp, wearing a judge's wig he'd somehow acquired, solemnly tapped the wooden barrel. "Now, let's begin the new crew induction ceremony and financial handover ceremony." Nami wore a brand new navigator's uniform, her short orange hair swaying gently in the morning breeze. Her eyes, however, were fixed on the gold-embossed ledger in Ron's hand. It was as thick as an encyclopedia, and the words Starship Financial Records on the cover glittered under the diamond inlay. Ron lay lazily on the sun lounger, not even moving a finger. And the ledger floated up and landed steadily in Nami's hands, from now on. "These are yours," Nami eagerly flipped open the ledger. Her pupils instantly turning into the Barry symbol, ones. Tension dreads thousands of thousands, billions. Billions, her voice suddenly rose, the ledger has. 3 billion berries, PFFT Sanji. Who was drinking tea, sprayed it all over Zoro. How much? Zoro wiped the tea off his face, surprisingly not drawing his sword, anyway. The captain can conjure money out of thin air, wrong. Ron held up one finger. It's money earned by the subsystem hosts through their hard work. He adjusted his sunglasses with a satisfied air. I'm just an ordinary money handler, oh right. He suddenly remembered something, snapped his fingers, and a navigator's hat inlaid with sapphires appeared in his hand. He then tossed it into the air, and it landed steadily on Nami's head, new employee gift. Nami touched her hat, then suddenly took a half step back. Looking alarmed, they're not going to deduct money from my salary too. Are they? How could that be? Ron's smile was incredibly innocent. As long as you work hard, you'll get 1% of the fleet's profits as a year-end bonus. Nami immediately pulled out her calculator and started typing furiously, her eyes growing brighter and brighter until they instantly turned into peal symbols. Wow, Captain, you're so kind, I love you to death. Wooden horse tilde as she spoke. She hugged Ron and gave him a hard peck on the cheek. Zoro opened his eyes at some point, looked at Nami, who was immersed in happiness, then glanced at Ron, who was leisurely sunbathing, and muttered to himself, the captain is making empty promises to the newcomers again. Ron grinned and clapped his hands. All right, jokes aside, let's begin the real welcome ceremony. Nami blinked, looking bewildered. A real welcome ceremony? Didn't the one we just had count just then use up? Arms crossed and with a "I've seen it all" expression, calmly waved his hand. That was just a warm-up. Now comes the main event. Nami was even more confused, her gaze sweeping back and forth between the group. What are you all talking about? Seeing that she still didn't understand, Zoro simply stated bluntly, to put it simply, the captain is going to give you a system to help you quickly become stronger. Otherwise, with your current strength, you simply can't keep up with all the system users on our ship. System user? Nami tilted her head, this unfamiliar term only adding to her confusion. Sanji exhaled a smoke ring, elegantly flicked his cigarette ash, and explained with a smile, that's right. Each of us has our own system, simply put. It's a special ability that allows us to grow at a speed beyond that of ordinary people. For example, he pointed to himself. My system is get stronger by getting hit. As long as I get hit, I become stronger. Nami's eyes widened. Getting beaten up makes you stronger. Does that mean the more you get beaten, the stronger you become? Sanji's eyes immediately turned into hearts. Of course. Nami-san, so after every battle I become stronger. And I hope you'll keep pushing me hard, you get lost. Zoro crossed his arms and snorted coldly. My system is the sleep system, which makes me stronger simply by sleeping. Get stronger just by sleeping? Nami exclaimed incredulously, that's outrageous. Zoro said calmly, that's why I often sleep. It's not because I'm lazy but because I'm training. Usopp puffed out his chest smugly, pointing his thumb to himself. My system is the ultimate show-off system. As long as you successfully show off, you'll get all sorts of rewards, pretending. Pretending to be cool, Nami's lips twitched. So all that exaggerated bragging you do is actually to get stronger. Usopp laughed heartily, that's right. My strength increases as long as others believe me, then. He whispered mysteriously, let me tell you a secret. My observation haki is the strongest on the entire ship. Keep pretending, keep pretending. Nami sighed, feeling her worldview shaken. Then she looked at Luffy. Luffy, what's your system? Luffy chuckled, my system is the god-level choice system. As long as I make a choice and complete it, I can eat meat. A choice, Nami asked curiously, for example. Luffy spread his hands, for example. The system might give me 3 choices, each with different rewards. I can choose one and complete the task to get the reward. I see, Nami nodded thoughtfully. So each of you became stronger thanks to the system. That's right, Usopp exclaimed excitedly. So, now the captain is going to bind you to a system too, making you a true system person upon hearing this. Nami's eyes lit up, her pupils instantly transforming into the shape of the Billy symbol. And she jumped up as if electrocuted. Really, then? Then can you make me rich? Her voice trembled slightly with excitement, and her fingers unconsciously rubbed together as if she had already touched a pile of gold coins. Seeing Nami's greedy expression, Ron couldn't help but nod and chuckle, of course. He snapped his fingers, and a golden light shot out from his fingertip and entered Nami's brow, then condensed into a light screen in front of her. The ultimate treasure hunting system is now bound. Host Nami system feature, keep digging for treasure. Current treasure hunting level, bronze 010. Today's task, treasure hunt once reward fast storage pointer. Ron then continued. This is the ultimate treasure hunting system. It automatically generates a unique treasure map for each new island you visit. Nami eagerly opened the sample scroll, and a detailed topographic map slowly appeared on it, with a striking red X mark gleaming alluringly. Ron continued. As long as you follow the treasure map and dig at the designated locations, you can obtain unexpected rewards, however. He deliberately drew out his words. Because the rewards are so incredible, varied and diverse, you can find anything, you must dig carefully. An incredible reward. Nami completely ignored the warning. She was completely focused on the treasure map. Her cheeks flushed with excitement. The lines on the scroll seemed to come alive, conjuring up illusions of countless gold and silver treasures before her eyes. She suddenly grabbed the scroll and hugged it tightly like a cat guarding its food. This is amazing. This system is practically made for me. Usopp leaned closer to get a better look, but Nami immediately turned away alertly. Don't peek. This is my personal treasure map, I want to see it too. It's an adventure with treasure, Luffy's eyes lit up. What pirate wouldn't want a treasure map? Nami's eyes gleamed with Bailey's light, and a sly smile played on her lips. Captain Ron. When do we set sail? I can't wait to strike it rich. Zoro shook his head helplessly. This woman completely changes when money is mentioned. Sanji, on the other hand, cupped his face in his hands, utterly captivated, but Nami is so cute like this too. Nami completely ignored her companion's reactions. She had already begun to plan. According to the system's requirements, we need to head to the next island as soon as possible. Let's go. Seeing this, Ron chuckled and patted her shoulder. Don't worry. The treasure map will always be with you, but remember, the more precious the treasure, the greater the risk it often carries. Okay. Nami's mind was completely occupied with the treasure, and she wasn't listening to anything else, anyway. You guys are here, Tilda, if there's any danger you are in charge. I'll take care of digging for treasure. What are we waiting for? Let's set sail. I can already hear the gold calling me. Nami's impatient urging immediately brought a flurry of activity to the deck of the starship. People ran around checking nautical charts, adjusting sails and constantly chanting faster, faster. Faster, Nami-san, Tilda, if you're in such a hurry. Would you like to try my specially made treasure adventure bento box first? Sanji sighed, a cigarette dangling from his lips, holding an exquisite lunchbox in his hand. Nami grabbed it without even looking. Thank you. I don't have time to savor it now. Sanji froze on the spot, tears welling in his eyes. Even Nami-san. Zoro leaned against the ship's railing and yawned lazily. Nami, have you forgotten something? He glanced meaningfully in the direction of Kakasi village. Nami suddenly stopped in her tracks, her expression turning serious. She gripped the treasure map tightly, her knuckles turning slightly white. Of course I haven't forgotten. That be ****** D Colonel Rat. A cold glint flashed in her eyes. Before we officially begin our treasure hunt, we have to get rid of this menace first, Luffy, who was sitting at the bow of the ship swinging his legs. Immediately perked up upon hearing this. Oh. Want to fight? He excitedly adjusted his straw hat. Perfect, I can test if I have any choices. Usopp suddenly tensed up. Wait, they are a Navy captain. Are we just going to walk right into their territory like this? Should we come up with a plan first? Like, let me show off a bit first. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Chinese letter, 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 Chinese letter. Chinese letter, 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 Chinese letter. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Chinese letter, 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 Chinese letter. Chinese letter, 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 Chinese letter. Nami gave a sly smile. Besides, I've already gathered enough evidence of his crimes. She pulled a stack of documents from her pocket. The evidence of his collusion with Arlong over the years is enough for Marine headquarters to send him to a court-martial. Usopp laughed. We're pirates. What do we need this evidence for, even if we had it? If we pirates killed a Marine, would still be wanted. Zoro raised an eyebrow. Whatever. But it seems Nami was prepared all along, of course. Nami's expression softened. I can't leave any hidden dangers for the village. She turned to look at the receding Kakashi village. The sea breeze ruffling her hair this time. We must completely eradicate all threats. Luffy suddenly stretched out his arms and put them all on his shoulders. It's settled then. First let's beat up Colonel Rattan then, he grinned, revealing his signature bright smile. Let's begin our grand treasure hunt adventure. Oh. The crowd responded in unison. Ron was also very curious about what outrageous things the treasure hunting system would unearth, since he knew the subsystem's functions best. And the reward section stated a wide variety of items, but varying qualities. Proceed with caution when treasure hunting. The starship traced a graceful arc across the sea, turning course and speeding toward the 16th Marine Division. Nami stood at the bow, looking at the treasure map system before her. Her eyes held both anticipation for the future and a resolute determination to settle old scores. 2 days later, the starship quickly arrived at the area where the 16th Marine Division was located. Usopp stood on the railing next to the figurehead, holding a small slingshot, aiming imposingly at the base gate. Let me show you the power of the King of Snipers, he shouted exaggeratedly. Especially made gunpowder sparks streaked across the sky. And to the horror of the naval soldiers, the base gate exploded, flames shooting into the sky. Listen up, Usopp stood with his hands on his hips, his voice booming. 30 more pirate ships are on their way. Those who know what's good for them will surrender now. He deliberately emphasized the words 30 ships, and even glanced back at the empty sea with a serious expression. What? These guys actually dared to attack a naval base head-on. Damn it, I heard there are 30 more pirate ships. Are we doomed today? Run for your lives. The recruits were so frightened their legs went weak. Some even dropped their weapons and turned to run away. Ding Host has successfully shown off. Rewards 100 rounds of enhanced ammo. 100 rounds of Burning Star. Current bragging level Silver 5 100. The system notification sounded in Usopp's ear. He smugly touched his long nose and muttered to himself. Looks like I didn't blow it big enough this time. But these bullets are really good. Sanji elegantly exhaled a smoke ring and slowly stepped forward. I don't want to get beaten up today. His eyes suddenly sharpened. I only want revenge. Sparks flew from his leather shoes on the ground. For the beautiful Lady Nami. Just then Colonel Mouse led a squad of elite soldiers out. When he saw who it was, first stared in shock. Then his gaze fell on Nami, and his expression became twisted and fascinating. Ha ha ha, he shrieked with laughter. What great pirate with 30 ships, you bunch of trash. He pointed contemptuously at Nami, especially you. You little thief, instead of making money for me. You've come here to die. Nami's face instantly darkened. Her fists clenched so tightly they cracked. Just as she was about to explode, a crisp notification sound rang in her mind. Ding. New location detected, treasure map system activated. Current location, Naval Branch 16. Treasure map generating. Treasure coordinates, base underground vault. Special note, digging may yield special rewards. Nami's pupils contracted sharply. A dangerous smile playing on her lips. Colonel Rat. It seems I'll have to settle both old and new scores today. She slowly pulled out a treasure scroll. And while I'm at it, I'll dig up my treasure. Colonel Mouse's beady eyes were fixed on the treasure map in Nami's hand. His pupils instantly shrinking to pinpoints before bursting with a greedy gleam. You audacious little thief, he shrieked. His voice distorted with agitation. How dare you steal my treasure map? His thin body trembled with rage, and his mustache twitched upon hearing this. The Navy soldiers behind him all had their eyes light up. What, there's treasure in the base? The colonel actually kept a treasure map hidden away. Brothers, let's split the spoils after we get it back. Charge will get rich. Greed instantly ignited within this group of scumbags, and they rushed towards Nami in a frenzy. Just then, a system notification sounded in Luffy's mind. Ding, God-level selection system activated. Option A, protect Nami from being harmed by the soldiers. Reward, 100 caddies of specially made seafood rice from the East Blue. Option B, defeat Colonel Rat directly. Reward, 100 caddies of special fruits from the Grand Line. Option C, keep an eye on Colonel Rat and prevent him from escaping. Reward, 100 gin of West Sea special roasted meat. Barbecue, and it's a special West Blue dish. Luffy's eyes instantly lit up with stars. His mouth watering, he never had it before. He shouted without hesitation, I choose C. Keep an eye on Colonel Rat. Ron sighed and rubbed his forehead, this glutton. He shook his head with a wry smile. As the system's controller, he couldn't directly interfere with the subsystem's host's choices, but he could guide them indirectly, however. These options were all quite similar. So Luffy was left to choose. The battle erupted instantly. Sanji flashed into the enemy ranks like a ghost, his leather shoes drawing sharp arcs in the air. You bunch of beasts. Do you even deserve to wear Navy uniforms? Each kick landed precisely on a soldier's vital spot, sending them flying backward. Zoro unleashed 3 sword strikes simultaneously. The white moonlight flashing like snow, 3 sword-style demon slash. 3 flashes of cold light appeared, and the weapons of the soldiers at the forefront snapped in 2. They stared in horror at the broken swords in their hands, and before they could even react, Zoro had killed them. Death is the only relief for you conscienceless bastards. Usopp standing on higher ground narrowed one eye, his superhuman observation haki automatically activating as he locked onto the fleeing soldiers, trying to run. Did you ask my slingshot first? The specially designed bullets whistled out, each one hitting a deserter precisely exploding instantly. And they all lay on the ground dead. I already told you I'm the god of sniping. Why are you still running? Colonel Mouse watched his men fall one by one, then saw Luffy glaring at him menacingly. Large beads of sweat appeared on his pale face. He trembled and backed away, only to be lifted up by Luffy's outstretched rubber arm. Don't run away. I'm still waiting to collect my barbecue reward. Nami approached step by step, the anger in her eyes almost tangible. The treasure map in her hand gleamed mysteriously in the sunlight, as if echoing her determination for revenge. Colonel Rat. Her voice was icy cold. How much blood and sweat money have you squeezed from Kakasi village over the years? Today, I'll make you cough it all up with interest. Colonel Rat's legs went weak, and he plopped down on the ground, his crotch gradually becoming wet. Wait. We can discuss the money. There's nothing to discuss. Nami took a step forward, raised her long beautiful leg high, and with all the anger she had accumulated over the years, kicked the rat Colonel hard in the ugly face. With a muffled thud, Colonel Rat's skeletal body arced through the air before crashing heavily to the ground. He coughed up 2 large mouthfuls of blood and stared at Nami in terror. Spare me. Nami looked down at the limp Colonel Rat with a cold smile. Her orange hair fluttering in the sea breeze. Letting you die like this is too easy for you. She crouched down, her shoe tip gripping the greasy chin of Colonel Rat tightly. I'll make you watch with your own eyes. Watch every single belly you've painstakingly amassed over the years be taken away by us. Colonel Mouse's face was ashen, and large beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. No. No, that money, that's all mine. He trembled as he reached out to grab Nami's trouser. But Luffy grabbed him by the back of his collar and lifted him up. Let's go watch Nami dig for treasure. Luffy waved the rat colonel in his hand with great interest, and the latter let out a pitiful howl like a piglet waiting to be slaughtered. The group arrived at the underground vault at the deepest part of the base. Nami carefully examined the treasure map, her eyes suddenly lighting up. This is it. As soon as she finished speaking, the treasure map in her hand suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light, transforming into a shovel entirely gilded in gold to everyone's astonishment. Ding, treasure location reached. The treasure map automatically transforms into a golden shovel. Special effect can ignore any geological structure, allowing for easy excavation. This is so thoughtful. Nami stroked the golden shovel with obvious delight, its surface shimmering with a mysterious light. It's gold, it must be very valuable, then. She turned to look at the rat colonel being carried by Luffy. The latter was staring wide-eyed in terror, muttering repeatedly, a devil fruit user. This is definitely a devil fruit ability. Nami gave a cruel smile. Today, I'll make you utterly despair with that. She swung her golden shovel and plunged it into the ground, beginning to dig. Surprisingly, after the last shovel was used, bang. The expected golden light did not appear, instead a cold, eerie green mist surged forth from the ground. This is, Nami took a half step back in astonishment. A mournful wail faintly echoed from within the mist, and the temperature in the entire basement plummeted. As time ticked by, the mist grew thicker and thicker, eventually transforming into thousands of translucent, vengeful spirits that soared into the sky. No, did I dig straight into the underworld with a shovel? Nami retreated in terror. But it was clear these vengeful spirits weren't there for her. These vengeful spirits, with THEIR Chinese letter, Zhengning ferocious hideous faces, included elderly people, women and children, all bearing shocking wounds, and each one glaring angrily at Colonel Rat. They were clearly villagers killed by Colonel Rat in life. Colonel Rat, you're going to die. I died such a terrible death. Give me back my daughter's life. The vengeful spirits let out heart-wrenching cries and surged towards Colonel Rat like a tidal wave. Luffy was so frightened that he let go of his grip. Colonel Rat collapsed to the ground, his crotch already soaked. No, it wasn't me, spare me. What? His pleas were drowned out by the roars of the vengeful spirits. The most terrifying scene unfolded. The vengeful spirits began tearing apart Colonel Rat's flesh. Each bite tore off a piece of flesh, yet strangely, not a single drop of blood flowed. The rat colonel's screams gradually weakened, until finally even the bones were completely devoured, leaving truly not a trace. After the vengeful spirits subsided, they turned to Nami, their faces becoming serene. Thank you, kind girl. The leading wronged soul bowed deeply. We can finally rest in peace. As the words fell, thousands of wronged souls turned into specks of light and dissipated into the air. Nami stood frozen in place, the golden shovel in her hand clattering to the ground. She mechanically turned to look at Ron, her voice trembling. This is really a treasure hunting system. She pointed to a wisp of green mist remaining on the ground. Would a legitimate treasure hunting system unearth something like this? Ron coughed awkwardly. Wells. The system description did mention unexpected rewards. Dig carefully, dig carefully. Usopp was already terrified. Crouching on the ground with his head in his hands, I knew it. I knew we'd dig up something terrible. Zoro frowned and tapped the ground with his scabbard, at least. It should be safe here now. Sanji lit a cigarette to calm himself, Nami-san. Before we go treasure hunting next time, would you like to buy us a lucky charm first? Nami sighed. Rubbing her forehead, is it too late for me to return it? As expected. Ron discovered that the treasure hunt rewards in this special scenario did not include the tenfold return. I guess I still have to be careful when digging for treasure. 3 days later at dawn, the starship carved a silver trail across the azure sea, sunlight illuminating its diamond-encrusted hull and refracting it into a dazzling display. This luxurious pirate ship is heading towards Logtown, the town of beginnings and ends. I heard that's where the pirate King Roger was born and died. Luffy exclaimed excitedly, hanging from the mast, his straw hat fluttering in the sea breeze. I definitely have to go see it. Usopp was counting his money pouch on the deck, which contained 10 million berries he'd earned using his ultimate bragging system. This time I'm going to buy the most advanced sniper scope, he declared smugly, shaking the pouch. And special gunpowder and... Nami poked her head out of the chart room. Anyway, you have plenty of money, so I won't give you any pocket money this time. She winked mischievously. Remember to bring me back some orange-scented perfume. Sanji, a cigarette dangling from his lips, was making a shopping list, fresh ingredients, new kitchen utensils. Oh, and I need to buy sunscreen for Nami. Zoro was dozing against the ship's railing, his 3 swords neatly laid out beside him. Suddenly, his ears twitched, and he opened his eyes. Something's coming. Everyone looked up and saw a newsbird flapping its wings as it flew overhead. When it saw the glittering, luxurious pirate ship below, it paused for a moment, then excitedly swooped down. Today's newspaper, cuckoo tilde tilde tilde. The newsbird adjusted its bow tie with its beak and proudly puffed out its chest. Nami, unusually generous, pulled out 1,000 berries. Here you go, kept the change. She took a thick stack of newspapers, and the newsbird chirped happily, dropping a few more special editions before flying away. Let me see what the latest news is. Nami unfolded the newspaper. Then suddenly her eyes widened. This is. The front page headline prominently featured the title, Wanted Notices Issued for the East Blue New Star Pirate Crew, accompanied by wanted photos of the crew. Wow. We've got a bounty on our heads. Luffy jumped down, snatched the newspaper and exclaimed, let me see. Straw Hat Luffy, 30 million berries. Usopp rushed over, me. Sniper King Usopp, 8 million berries, that's amazing. He excitedly waved his arms and legs. I'm finally a bounty hunting pirate. But it's still 8 million, who do you think you are? I'm the real king of snipers. Sanji elegantly exhaled a smoke ring. Blackleg Sanji. 12 million berries, not bad. But when he saw the photo was an unflattering picture of himself staring wide-eyed, he instantly flew into a rage. Which B***** D took this. Zoro frowned as he looked at his wanted poster, Pirate Hunter Zoro. 15 million berries. HMPH, as long as it's higher than the cook's. Nami's fingers trembled slightly as she incredulously checked the numbers on the newspaper again. Cat burglar Nami. 20 million berries. Her voice involuntarily rose an octave. What's going on? An uproar erupted on the deck. Luffy's eyes widened. Wow. Nami is amazing. Zoro raised an eyebrow. 5 million more than me. Sanji was also shocked, as expected of Nami. Usopp's jaw nearly dropped to the floor. Wait. This isn't right, is it? He pointed to his bounty poster. I'm the Sniper King who awakened observation Haki. How come I only have 8 millions? That's less than half of Nami's. He frantically ripped at his afro. This is such a failure. Ron stroked his chin thoughtfully. Looks like the Navy thinks you're a devil fruit user. He pointed to the caption attached to the newspaper. It says here, suspected of possessing the terrifying ability to control the dead. Nami then noticed the fine print below the bounty poster. This criminal can summon an army of the dead. and was responsible for the mysterious deaths of the entire 16th Marine Division. Her lips twitched a few times. Are you kidding me? That was clearly dug up by the treasure map system. And it was just one rat colonel they took down. This is clearly just nonsense. Nami was completely baffled. It was clearly putting all the blame on her alone. But that explanation makes sense, Zoro said, arms crossed. After all the Marines present were dead. Only we survived. The Marines are definitely blaming you for those deaths. Sanji blew a smoke ring and looked at Usopp with smug satisfaction. Long nose. Looks like your observation haki isn't strong enough, Tilda. Usopp angrily pulled out his slingshot, believe it or not. I'll show you my skills right now. Sanji gave him an annoyed look. Stop showing off in front of me. Okay, Usopp-sama, is it really that obvious? Usopp muttered to himself. Nami suddenly burst out laughing, 20 million berries. Her eyes gradually turned into the symbol of berries. Such a high bounty. Does that mean I'm worth a lot of money now? You guys better protect me well, Tilda. Luffy laughed heartily. Of course you're our navigator. But Nami, with your bounty so high now, you'd better be careful when you go ashore to buy things. That's easy, Tilda. Nami pulled out a blonde wig and sunglasses from somewhere. I already prepared my disguise props. Ron looked at the noisy crew and shook his head helplessly. All right. The bounty isn't important. Improving our strength is the key to establishing ourselves on the high seas. Oh, everyone agreed in unison just then. Nami suddenly noticed something and quickly flipped through the newspaper. Where's Captain Ron's bounty poster? Everyone then realized that Ron was the only one missing from the entire wanted poster. Luffy scratched his head. Strange. Ron is clearly the strongest, Zoro analyzed. Could it be that because the captain hasn't fought any battles, there hasn't been a corresponding assessment? That's why there's no bounty. It should be, perhaps. At the same time, upon seeing figures ahead, Usopp suddenly shouted with delight, I can see land. Logtown is just ahead. Everyone immediately forgot about the bounty and rushed to the bow of the ship. In the distance, a prosperous port town gradually appears on the horizon. Its towering execution platform casting long shadows in the sunlight. The town of the Pirate Kings. Luffy adjusted his straw hat. His eyes gleaming with excitement. We're here. Nami has already started planning what nautical supplies she needs to buy. And she's determined to save money. Sanji was planning to replenish their surplus, thinking, when sailing the high seas, it's essential to maintain a balanced diet. Usopp, meanwhile, was talking about the new equipment he wanted to buy. My weapon needs an upgrade too. But unfortunately the system won't give me any new ones. So I'll just have to upgrade it myself. Only Ron stood at the bow, quietly watching the approaching town of rogues. A slight smile playing on his lips, the town of beginnings and ends. What an interesting place. After sailing at sea for 3 days, as the ultra-luxurious starship slowly entered the port of Logtown, the entire dock erupted in cheers, bathed in sunlight. This pirate ship, entirely gilded and inlaid with jewels, radiated a dazzling light. The railings were even plated with golds, shimmering and ostentatious. My goodness. Is this a royal yacht from some kingdom? Damn it, the celestial dragons are here. No. Look at that pirate flag, that's a pirate ship. How many Pelés is this worth? The crowd on the dock stopped in their tracksmiths agape, gasping for breath, almost creating a vacuum. Some even knelt down, speechless with awe at the luxurious sight. On the deck of the starship, Ron and his crew stood in a line at the bow, enjoying the astonished gazes from the crowd below. Luffy adjusted his straw hat, grinning with his signature smile. Zoro held his 3 swords wearing a cool expression. Sanji elegantly exhaled smoke rings, and Nami proudly puffed out her chest, her short orange hair fluttering in the sea breeze. Only Ron was leisurely leaning back in his deck chair, enjoying the sea breeze. Just then, Usopp suddenly stepped forward, looking down at the crowd on the docks. He deliberately spoke with disdain. Tusk. You're all so shocked by just a small boat. He spread his hands exaggeratedly if the story of how the great Usopp struck the world's greatest swordsman. Mihawka Shichibuke, get back here. Wouldn't your jaws drop in shock? Upon hearing this, the doc fell completely silent. Everyone's expressions froze, as if a pause button had been pressed. A few seconds later, an even louder uproar erupted. What? Which Hawkeye is he talking about? How many dare to call themselves Hawkeye? The 7 warlords of the sea. The world's greatest swordsman. There were indeed reports a few days ago that Hawkeye had appeared in the East Daxia Sea. Could it be? That mysterious man who fought Hawkeye was him. The crowd began to whisper. Their eyes filled with awe as they looked at Usopp. Some merchants were even starting to consider whether to give gifts to the god of snipers. Ding! Successfully detected a small attempt at showing off. Reward Silver Slingshot Net, attack power plus 30%. Review powerful and excellent choice for beginners. A system notification sounded in Usopp's mind, and his eyes lit up. A specially made slingshot net, gleaming with silver light, appeared out of thin air in his hand. He was so excited he almost jumped up. This is practically tailor-made for me. System, oh system, you're truly my favorite system. Nami rolled her eyes. Here we go again. Zoro scoffed, as expected of the strongest bragging system, getting a reward with just 2 sentences. Sanji added with a mischievous grin. The effect was immediate. Luffy paid no attention to any of that. He couldn't wait any longer and stretched out his arm to grab the railing on the dock. I'm going to see the execution platform. Before he finished speaking, he was launched into the air. Hey, wait for us, Nami shouted hurriedly, turning to Ron and saying, Captain, we have to hurry and catch up, or that idiot will cause trouble again. Just as everyone was about to disembark, Nami suddenly shuddered and stopped in her tracks. Her pupils dilated slightly as a semi-transparent golden treasure map appeared before her eyes. Clearly marked with a flashing red dot, the location of Roger's execution platform. Wait, Nami grabbed Ron's sleeve, her voice trembling slightly with excitement. My treasure hunting system generated a new treasure map. She pointed towards the execution platform. Right there on Roger's execution platform. Ron frowned slightly upon hearing this, and subconsciously touched his chin. The scene of the wronged souls being unearthed at the naval base is still vivid in his mind. The eerie and terrifying atmosphere still haunts him. He pondered for a moment, then cautiously said, let's stick to the plan and go purchase supplies first. Oh, he added, the execution platform isn't going to grow legs and run away. We'll go treasure hunting together after we've finished the planned tasks. Nami pouted, reluctantly waving the treasure map in her hand, but what if we dig up something amazing again? Ron lowered his voice, glancing meaningfully at the execution platform in the distance. I honestly don't know what we'll find. If we do find something extraordinary again, we can keep each other in check. Zoro, carrying 3 swords, walked over and interjected the captain's right. That execution platform, his eyes sharpened. I have a feeling something's fishy about it. Upon hearing this, Usopp immediately hid behind Sanji. Right. Those vengeful spirits last time were terrifying. We need to be fully prepared. At least we should bring holy water across garlic. Sanji exhaled a smoke ring and shook his head helplessly. You long-nosed idiot. Do you think we're dealing with vampires? Seeing the worried expressions on her companions' faces, Nami relented. All right, let's go shopping first. Ron nodded, but secretly he was thinking, given how bizarre Nami's treasure hunting system was, maybe what's buried under the execution platform isn't treasure at all, but something far more terrifying. For example, Roger's ghost or something like that isn't impossible. However, if Roger's spirit is indeed unearthed, the 3 admirals of the Navy will probably arrive very soon. Maybe even those 5 old guys had to come and take a look. Just thinking about I am behind those 5 old guys made Ron's heart flutter. Tusk, Im's figure is undeniably amazing. Let's go. Usopp was already standing on the dock railing, waving his arms excitedly. First, let's go shopping. Then we'll go treasure hunting at the same time. The office of the Logtown Naval Branch was filled with smoke. Smoker leaned back in his chair, a thick cigar between two fingers. White smoke rings slowly spreading in the air. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting dappled shadows on his resolute face. Report. Tashigi flung open the door, her eyes behind her glasses flashing with anxiety. Holding a stack of newly received intelligence, she hurriedly said without even having time to salute. The Straw Hat Pirates have landed in Logtown. Smoker slowly exhaled a smoke ring, his eyes sharp as an eagle's. The specifics. They are absolutely arrogant. Tashigi pushed up her slipped glasses, her voice filled with disbelief. Their pirate ship was completely inlaid with diamonds, and the railings were gilded, so bright in the sunlight that it was blinding. According to eyewitnesses, the entire ship looked like it was made of gold and diamonds. Smoker's brow twitched, the cigar trembling slightly between his fingers. He stood up and walked to the window, gazing through the glass towards the harbor. Go on. They've split into several groups, Tashigi said, quickly flipping through the intelligence reports. The long-nosed sniper and the green-haired swordsman went to the weapons shop. The blonde chef is on a shopping spree at the food market. And Straw Hat Luffy, she paused, is heading alone to Roger's execution platform. Smoker whirled around, his cigar leaving a deep teeth mark on his lips. Where's that Ron guy? Tashigi shook her head, her bangs swaying slightly. Nothing special happening right now. He and Cat Burglar Nami were shopping for nautical supplies in the shopping district. Looking ordinary. She hesitated for a moment before adding, like an ordinary couple strolling around. A brief silence fell over the office. Smoker walked to the wanted poster on the wall and pointed heavily at the blank space where Ron's photo should have been a blank page. Ordinaries. Smoker sneered, cigar smoke billowing from his nostrils. A man who can gild an entire ship. A man whose men follow him blindly. A man even naval intelligence couldn't detect. His voice grew deeper. You call that ordinary? Tashigi unconsciously straightened her back. But Colonel, we really haven't gathered any intelligence about him taking action. That's precisely why it's more dangerous. Smoker slammed his fist on the table, making the ashtray jump. A formidable opponent is far more terrifying than those who bare their teeth and claws. He strode to the coat rack, took off the navy cloak from his back, and the white characters for justice gleamed in the sunlight. Pass on my orders. Smoker's voice was as cold and hard as steel. Immediately mobilize the elite troops and blockade all main roads leading out of the city. Keep a close watch on the execution platform and the commercial street. He donned his cloak, his jet weapons gleaming coldly at his waist. It's time to teach these arrogant newcomers a lesson. Tashigi stood at attention and saluted. Yes, Colonel. But a hint of hesitation flashed in her eyes, however. The Straw Hat Crew's bounty, Smoker, who had reached the door, stopped at the sound of his voice. A bounty isn't everything, Tashigi. His voice suddenly deepened. On this high seas, the real danger often lies not with those who have a price tag on them. After he finished speaking, pushed open the door, and blinding sunlight instantly flooded into the office. Smoker paused in the doorway. Remember, capture Ron and Luffy first, the others. We'll see how things go. Tashigi watched her officer's departing figure, unconsciously tightening her grip on Shigeru. Yes, sir, Colonel. Smoker. After finishing their shopping, everyone simultaneously noticed something was amiss. Zoro stopped in front of the weapon shop, but didn't buy a sword. There wasn't a single good one there. The only decent one, the Sandai Kaitsu, was so terrified by Zoro's tenki that it didn't even flinch. So he left the shop, intending to head to the execution platform, but found himself lost to Sanji, carrying a bag full of fresh ingredients. Keenly sensed the gazes from a corner of the market. Usopp, clutching his newly purchased sniper equipment, had beads of sweat on his forehead. They both realized that the Marines were secretly following them. Tusk, we've been targeted, Zoro lowered his voice, casually adjusting the angle of his headscarf. his sharp gaze sweeping across the shadows at the street corner. Several naval soldiers in civilian clothes hurriedly hid in the alley. But their clumsy disguise could not escape the swordsman's eyes. Should we grab a few sailors to ask for directions? On the other side, Sanji lit a cigarette and muttered a curse under his breath as he exhaled smoke. These marine bugs. I hope Luffy, that idiot, doesn't cause any trouble at this time. He quickened his pace and hurried towards the execution platform. At the same time, inside a boutique clothing store on the shopping street, Nami was admiring Ron's completely transformed appearance. The deep blue custom-made suit perfectly accentuated his tall and straight figure, while the silver-gray tie gleamed subtly in the sunlight. The well-tailored fabric flowed with elegant lines as he moved, exuding a mature and composed charm. It suits you perfectly. Nami crossed her arms, her eyes shining with admiration. Ron gently smoothed out the fine wrinkles on his cuff, a faint smile playing on his lips. Thank you. I didn't expect you to have such good taste. What's this? Nami waved her hand, her short orange hair swaying playfully at her neck. Compared to the kindness you showed us by saving our village, this isn't even interest, she winked mischievously. Anyway, it's all your money. As the two were chatting and laughing, Nami suddenly noticed several suspicious figures outside the shop window. She pretended to fix her hair and, through the reflection in the shop window, made out the people's attire. Although they were well concealed, their clumsy tracking skills and the weapons at their waists gave them away. Nami's voice suddenly tightened, her face turning pale instantly. We're being watched by the Navy. Her fingers unconsciously clenched the shopping bag, her knuckles turning white. Ron, however, calmly adjusted his tie. Without even raising an eyebrow, I know. His voice was as calm as if he were discussing the weather. From the moment we disembarked, the movement of every single ant on this island has not escaped my notice. What? Nami turned her head sharply, her eyes wide with disbelief. You knew all along. Why didn't you tell us? Her voice was extremely low, but it couldn't hide the panic within. We have to tell the others to evacuate immediately. Ron suddenly chuckled, a laugh filled with absolute confidence and composure. He gently placed a hand on Nami's shoulder. Why run away? A sharp glint flashed in his deep eyes. Do you think we're afraid of these Marines right now? These words were like a bucket of cold water poured over Nami. Waking her up, she paused for a few seconds, then scratched her head awkwardly, a look of realization dawning on her face. Ah. You're right, she chuckled self-deprecatingly. It's become a conditioned reflex. My first reaction to seeing the Navy is to run away. Her gaze hardened, and her fingers traced the treasure map at her waist. I almost forgot. We're now cheaters with a system. Ron nodded in satisfaction, pushed open the shop door, and the afternoon sun poured in, gilding his silhouette. He turned to Nami, his eyes flashing with fighting spirit. Let's go. Forget about them for now. It's time to dig for treasure. Yes, treasure hunting is the important thing. Nami took a deep breath, straightened her back, and followed the naval soldiers on the street corner, watching the two suddenly exude an aura of authority. Swallowed hard in unison, the leading petty officer, his hand trembling, pressed the communicator. Report. The target seems to have spotted us. Smoker's deep voice came through the communicator. Since we can't hide anymore, let's follow them openly, keep a close watch on them. Yes, sir, the sergeant waved his hand, and the naval soldiers hidden in the alleys immediately lined up in neat rows, openly following behind Ron and Nami. They maintained a distance of about 10 meters, their guns already cocked, the clanging of metal particularly jarring in the quiet street. Nami glanced back, her brow furrowing slightly. Are they no longer going to hide it? Ron's lips curled into a cold smile. Looks like they're planning a direct confrontation. His gaze swept across the surrounding rooftops. Several dark figures were moving rapidly. There are snipers on the rooftops too, at the same time. Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp scattered throughout the town. Also noticed the tail behind them. Zoro clicked his tongue impatiently. and the three swords trembled slightly in their sheaths. Sanji exhaled a smoke ring, and his leather shoe heels stomped on the ground. Usopp nervously swallowed, but thinking of his newly acquired silver net, he straightened his back a moment later. The Navy branch discovered that all the Straw Hat crew members were heading in the same direction, Roger's execution platform. They immediately changed their plans. "Attention all units," Smoker said. Standing in the command center, staring at the town model in front of him. "The target is moving towards the execution platform." "Repeat." "All targets are converging on the execution platform." He slammed the communication button, each squad. "Change routes immediately and encircle the execution platform from areas C and D. Make sure to form a complete encirclement, understood." Came a series of replies from the communicator. Tashigi strode to Smoker's side. "Figure already drawn, Colonel. Should we deploy the Special Operations Team?" Smoker removed the cigar from his mouth and stubbed it out forcefully in the ashtray. "Everyone out," a cold glint flashed in his eyes. "This time I'm going to meet that mysterious Ron myself." At this moment, the town of Rogue seemed to have transformed into a giant chessboard. On the streets, naval soldiers split into several small teams, taking shortcuts to the execution platform and the rooftops. Snipers moved quickly, searching for the best firing positions. The Straw Hat crew member, seemingly nonchalant, were actually working in unison towards the same destination. Usopp jogged around a street corner and suddenly bumped into Zoro, who was waiting for him. "Zoro," he whispered. "There are at least 20 Marines following behind." Zoro scoffed. "I have a dozen or so on my side too." He narrowed his eyes, looking at the towering execution platform ahead. "Looks like they're planning to close the net there." On the other side, Sanji gracefully leaped over a low wall, landing right in front of Ron and Nami's. "Hey, your matching outfits are quite nice, but Nami is still prettier." He teased, but his eyes immediately turned serious. "The Navy has set up an ambush at the execution platform." Ron straightened his suit cuffs, his face showing no sign of tension. "I know." He looked up towards the execution platform, the sunlight making him squint slightly. "Luffy should be here by now." Just then, a commotion suddenly arose in the distance. A panicked naval soldier's voice came through the communicator. "Report. Straw Hat Boy has reached the execution platform." "Repeat, Straw Hat Boy has." Communication abruptly stopped. Smoker abruptly stood up, his white cloak fluttering behind him. "Move." Hundreds of elite naval personnel appeared simultaneously in the buildings surrounding the execution platform, armed with various weapons completely surrounding it. The snipers on the high ground were already in position, their crosshairs firmly locked onto every entrance below the stage. At the top of the execution platform, Luffy sat cross-legged, his straw hat obscuring his expression. He seemed oblivious to the tense atmosphere around him, gazing intently at the distant sea. "Straw Hat Luffy." Smoker's voice boomed through the plaza via loudspeakers. "You're surrounded, surrender now." Luffy then looked up, flashing a bright smile. "As you were here." He stood up, brushing the dust off his pants. "Perfect timing, my crew will be here soon too." As if to confirm his words, Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Nami, and Rune appeared one after another in the alleys surrounding the plaza. They stood seemingly casually, yet they all happened to gather around the execution platform. Smoker's pupils contracted slightly. His opponent was clearly prepared. Ron walked slowly to the front, his brand-new suit gleaming in the sunlight. He looked up and met Smoker's gaze, a meaningful smile playing on his lips. "White Hunter Smoker, I've heard so much about you." A sea breeze swept across the square, swirling up a few fallen leaves. Smoker frowned, and white smoke drifted from the corner of his mouth. He stared coldly at Ron, his right hand already gripping the handle of the cross. "I don't know you. No need for you to try and get close to me, then." A voice as icy as ice pierced the air. "Regardless, today is your end. Your carefree pirate life ends here. Spend the rest of your lives regretting it in Impel Down." Ron chuckled softly at this, a sound that seemed particularly abrupt in the somber square. He elegantly adjusted his suit cuffs. Sunlight refracting brilliantly off his diamond cufflinks. Life by the sea is so wonderful. He looked up, his eyes sparkling like stars. The vast expanse of blue waters. The freedom of riding the waves. And countless adventures and treasures. How could we miss out on such a life? Having said that, he slightly turned his head to look at Usopp behind him, just going through the motions. Usopp immediately understood, and his long nose twitched smugly. He strode slowly to the very center of the two opposing armies, his silver netting reflecting a cold light at his waist. With his arms crossed and chin held high, he looked down at Smoker with a condescending gaze. You. Usopp's voice suddenly became deep and magnetic. Have you heard of my name? Smoker frowned even more, looking the pretentious long-nosed man up and down, and said coldly no. Usopp showed no embarrassment whatsoever. Instead, he gave a mysterious smile. Since you haven't heard of my name, you must have heard my story. Smoker's patience had clearly reached its limit. Veins bulged on his forehead. Stop playing tricks. Usopp's eyes suddenly sharpened, and he took a step forward. You dare to frown in front of me? His voice rose 8 octaves. Even the world's greatest swordsman Hawkeye Mihawk wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. These words were like a bomb exploding in the naval ranks. The soldiers looked at each other, whispers rising and falling. What is he saying? Hawkeye. The Hawkeye from the 7 warlords of the sea. Could this guy be? Usopp gave everyone no time to react. He swiftly drew his silver net from his waist, tracing a dazzling arc in the air. It's time to finish you off in one move. The naval soldiers were completely dumbfounded. They stared wide-eyed at the long-nosed man spouting nonsense, some even unconsciously taking a half-step back. It should be noted that standing before them was Smoker, the renowned white hunter of the Marine headquarters, a Logia-type smoke fruit user, and the strongest guardian of the East Blue. Is this guy crazy? To take down Colonel Smoker in one move, just who is he? Even Tashigi couldn't help but tighten her grip on Shigeru. Her eyes behind her glasses filled with surprise and uncertainty. As she whispered Colonel's person, Smoker suddenly laughed. A mocking laugh at a clown who overestimated himself. Interesting. White smoke began to rise from his body. Then let me see how you'll take me down in one move. A bead of cold sweat trickled down Usopp's forehead, but he maintained his arrogant demeanor on the surface. Usopp took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, it was as if lightning flashed in his pupils, and his observation haki exploded out, pushing it to its limit. 3 snipers are lying in ambush atop the clock tower to the southeast. His voice suddenly became ethereal and precise, his finger pointing accurately into the distance. 2 of them are using technologically advanced Eagle Eye sniper rifles, with a range of 500 meters. The other is using an older-style sniper rifle, with the crosshair off to the right by 3 degrees. The naval soldiers gasped, and several of the snipers who had been named nearly fell from their hiding places. The intelligence was absolutely accurate. Usopp didn't stop continuing to pace across the plaza, each step feeling like it was treading on the Navy's nerves. A total of 248 naval personnel are assembled on site, including 5 ensigns and 23 sergeants. His nose twitched slightly. You are carrying, let me count, a total of 5764 rounds of ammunition, including 6 specially made seastone rounds. Tashiga's hands trembled involuntarily, and she instinctively pressed her hand against the ammunition pouch at her waist. It contained exactly 6 seastone bullets. Smoker's expression grew increasingly grim, but Usopp's performance had only just begun. He suddenly turned to Smoker, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Colonel Smoker, your heart rate is now 118 beats per minute, and your blood pressure has risen to 145/90. He shook his head with feigned regret. Looks like you're quite nervous. As if to confirm his words, Smoker's heart suddenly pounded. Every piece of data that this long-nosed man uttered was terrifyingly accurate. He instinctively pressed his hand to his chest. And for some reason his heart was pounding wildly. I believe it, what they said is true. The naval camp was in complete turmoil. How could he know so much? He even knows how many bullets I have left in my gun. What kind of ability is this? Ding. Host has successfully shown off, stunning everyone present. Reward: intermediate weapon, black hoods. Current bragging level, silver 10-100. Intermediate weapon, black helmet, range 49-99 meters. Error 0, damage bonus 50%. Special feature: attacks using the black-clad hem will inflict additional area of effect damage. His Usopp was stunned by the system's reward, his scalp tingling with shock. He never expected to be rewarded with a weapon. And it's only intermediate level black hood. He suddenly became incredibly excited, like he'd been injected with adrenaline, but outwardly maintained a composed and aloof demeanor. He slowly stroked the silver mesh back, then suddenly lowered his voice. Now, do you still think I'm exaggerating? These words struck the Navy like a heavy hammer blow. The soldiers who had just been mocking Usopp were now all pale-faced, and some even unconsciously took a few steps back. Smoker's jet trembled slightly in his hand. In all his years of fighting, he had never encountered such a strange opponent. Impossible. Tashiga's glasses slipped down to the tip of her nose. This level of observation, hacky. Even a vice admiral at headquarters. Usopp stepped forward at the opportune moment. Now, is there anyone who still doubts my strength? His voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the entire plaza. Luffy, who had somehow already positioned himself at the edge of the execution platform, excitedly waved his arms. Usopp, that was so cool. Sanji chuckled, a cigarette dangling from his lips. Long Nose did a pretty good job of putting on an act this time. What? Zoro crossed his arms and nodded in rare agreement. It's ridiculous, but the effect is good. Nami secretly wiped the cold sweat from her forehead. Heaven knows how worried she was that Usopp would be exposed. Usopp had his back to his companions, so no one saw that his back was soaked with sweat. But when he looked up again, his eyes still shone with a confident light that said, "Everything is under control. Smoker, you're not qualified to fight me yet. Once you reach the level of a Shichibukai like Mihawk, then I'll consider it." He slowly raised the silver net. "However, next time I see you, I won't hold back. Now let my friends give you some pointers." The entire town square seemed to have been put on pause. The air was so thick it was almost viscous. The sailors gaped, their eyes practically popping out of their sockets. Are you kidding me? Colonel Smoker isn't even qualified to fight. These guys are really rookie pirates, you're kidding me." While the Marines were still reeling from the shock Usopp had caused, Zoro slowly walked out of the crowd, the sunlight gilding his green hair, and his three swords swaying gently with his steps. He stopped in the center of the square, his right hand slowly resting on the hilt of his knife. With a whoosh, three cold lights flashed simultaneously as he held the Wado Ikemanji in his mouth, its blade gleaming coldly in the sunlight. Zoro lowered his stance slightly, his three swords assuming a perfect offensive posture. Now, his voice echoed through the blades, carrying a metallic vibration. Who wants to fight? I'll gladly oblige. Almost at the same time, Sanji strode forward with elegant steps, removing the cigarette from his mouth, his leather shoes leaving a trail of sparks on the ground. Want to stretch your muscles? Come find me. The sailors, whose minds had just been intimidated by Usopp, suffered another heavy blow to their horror. They discovered that the green-haired swordsman and his three-sword-style starting stance exuded a terrifying killing intent. And that blonde chef's kicking technique, was that flame for real? Won't it burn his foot? Smoker's temples throbbed, and fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. His clenched fists were bulging with veins. This wasn't some rookie pirate crew. They were clearly monsters in sheep's clothing. With the forces he currently led, they might really be wiped out. Just as Smoker was caught in a dilemma, a burst of golden light suddenly shone from the execution platform. Everyone's attention was involuntarily drawn to it. Nami was already standing on Roger's execution platform, her short orange hair flying in the sea breeze. The treasure map in her hand transformed into a stream of light, which, to everyone's astonishment, condensed into a golden shovel that was entirely gilded. Yet another devil fruit user. Tashigi exclaimed in shock, nearly causing Shigeru to slip from her grasp again. Smoker was also stunned. He stared wide-eyed at the golden shovel. What kind of ability is this? His brain was already struggling to process the amount of information he'd received that day. What is she going to do on the execution platform? Dismantle it, ignoring the Marine's shock. Nami excitedly waved her golden shovel. Everyone, I'm going to start digging for treasure. No sooner had she spoken than the shovel slammed heavily into the wooden plank of the execution platform. Stop! Smoker finally snapped out of his daze, white smoke billowing from his body. The execution platform must not be dismantled. Boom. The entire execution platform suddenly trembled violently, and a dazzling golden beam of light shot into the sky from where Nami had dug. The strong gusts of air blew the sailors about, and Smoker's smoke-filled form was mostly dispersed. As the light dimmed, everyone was horrified to discover that a bottomless black hole had appeared in the center of the execution platform. Even more terrifying, an ancient and heavy thumping sound was emanating from within the hole, as if something was awakening from the depths of the earth. Ron had somehow appeared beside Nami, his suit remaining perfectly still amidst the energy storm, it seems. A hint of seriousness flashed in his eyes. We've unearthed something extraordinary. Luffy excitedly peered down into the cave. Wow. It's so deep, could there be treasure? Usopp clung tightly to the bars of the execution platform. I think we'd better get out of here quickly. Zoro and Sanji simultaneously assumed fighting stances, because they both felt the chilling pressure emanating from the ground. Smoker had completely forgotten about the capture mission. He stared intently at the black hole, a chill running down his spine. What the hell have these guys done? At this suffocating moment, a deep and hearty laugh suddenly came from the depths of the earth. Ha ha ha. Smoker shuddered violently, his pupils suddenly shrinking to the size of pinpoints. He knew that voice all too well, 20 years ago. At that world-renowned execution, the owner of that voice uttered those last words before his death, which ushered in the great pirate era, Roger. Roger's voice. His voice was distorted with extreme shock. The sailors around the execution platform were instantly thrown into chaos. Some collapsed to the ground in terror. Some rubbed their eyes frantically, and many more were oblivious to the weapons clattering to the ground. Tashiga's glasses slipped down to the tip of her nose. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't utter a single word. What a joke. Smoker's white, smoky form trembled violently. That guy's been dead for over 20 years. The golden light in midair suddenly contracted and condensed, and under everyone's horrified gaze, a phantom yet incredibly clear figure gradually took shape, complete with the iconic captain's hat, unruly beard, and that familiar red coat, the Phantom of Gal D. Roger hovered above the execution platform, sunlight piercing through his body but casting no shadow on the ground. It really is One Piece. Usopp's legs went weak, and he almost knelt on the ground. But how could a god of swagger kneel before a king? Zoro frowned deeply. This treasure hunting system was truly a mess. Sanji's cigarette fell onto his shoe, and even Luffy, unusually quiet, stared wide-eyed at this legendary man. Most chillingly, Roger's phantom seemed completely oblivious to everyone present. He let out his signature hearty laugh, heh heh heh. Then he raised his right hand, making the world-changing gesture, want my treasure. Nami unconsciously held her breath, her eyes turning into the shape of Bully treasure. The Pirate King's treasure. Roger's phantom continued uttering that legendary line, then go find it. I've left all my treasure there. After saying this, his right hand suddenly turned towards Nami, slowly opening to reveal an ancient-looking pointer of eternity in his palm. This is Nami's pupils contracted sharply, and a notification suddenly popped up on her system interface. Ding, treasure hunting mission complete. Obtained permanent log pointer to Laugh Tale. Item description, the eternal route leading to the final island. An eerie silence fell over the entire square. Smoker's smoky form solidified completely. He stared intently at the pointer. As a high-ranking officer in the Navy, he knew all too well what it meant. This is the key to Laugh Tale that even the world government is frantically searching for. Roger's phantom began to fade away. But before it completely disappeared, it suddenly winked at the void and revealed a sly smile, as if it had traveled through time and space to see the scene at this moment. As the last glimmer of golden light faded, the log pose fell into Nami's hand with a ding. "I sweet." Nami's hands trembled slightly as she held the log pose, her voice trembling with excitement. "We got the log pose to the final island, hey Roger." Luffy suddenly shouted, interrupting Nami's thoughts. He was now standing on the edge of the execution platform, his eyes burning with fierce fire beneath his straw hat, even without this pointer. "I will still become the Pirate King." Smoker snapped out of his shock. White smoke billowing out instantly. "Attention everyone. Retrieve that pointer at all costs," his voice cracked. "That's a dangerous object capable of turning the world upside down." At this extremely tense moment, a crisp system notification suddenly rang in Luffy's mind. Ding, God-level selection system activated. Option A, save the pointer and follow the map to Laugh Tale. Reward, Poneglyph deciphering ability. Option B, hand over the pointer to the Navy in exchange for the bounty being withdrawn, and receive the reward of mastery of the Navy's 6 styles. Option C, crush the permanent save pointer. Reward, Second Awakening. Luffy's eyes suddenly cleared. He raised his hand to press down on his straw hat, and a determined smile appeared on his lips. "I choose C." Amidst everyone's astonished gazes, Luffy turned to Nami, his voice more earnest than ever before. "Nami, dreams shouldn't be defined." His eyes burned with a fierce flame. "The sea is free. If you just follow someone else's path, even if you reach Laugh Tale, that's Roger's achievement." He stretched out his hand, the shadow of his straw hat obscuring half his face. "Since we've chosen to set sail, we should forge our own course. With our own strength, we can find all the treasures." Nami stared blankly at Luffy, the eternal hand in her hand suddenly becoming scalding hot. She remembered the orange groves in Kakasi village, Bellemere's Smilliant, her dream of drawing a world map. Finally, she smiled with relief and placed the pointer in Luffy's palm without hesitation. "You're right, Captain." Smoker's white, smoky form trembled violently. "Stop. Do you know what that is?" Luffy grinned and suddenly clenched his fists. Smack. A crisp cracking sound echoed across the square as the legendary Laugh Tale perpetual log pose transformed into countless golden specks in Luffy's hands. These specks of light drifted in the wind, resembling countless tiny stars in the sunlight. Ding. Selection complete. Reward, Second Tier Awakening. Additional effect, side effects removed. Luffy's body suddenly glowed with an eerie red light, and it felt as if magma was flowing through his veins. But instead of experiencing his new ability, he held up the shattered pointer and shouted to all the Marines. "Watch closely, this is our answer." Smoker, who was on the phone with Sengoku at Naval Headquarters, was stunned. Sengoku's anxious voice came from the other end of the den mushi. After a long pause, Smoker mechanically replied, "And no problem, the permanent log pose was destroyed by Straw Hat Luffy himself." He hung up the phone, and white smoke drifted uncontrollably in all directions. The entire square fell silent. The expressions on the sailors' faces were a complex mix of shock, confusion, admiration, and bewilderment. Tashigi even forgot to pick up the fallen Shigure, and just stared blankly at the dissipating golden specks of light. A hint of admiration flashed in Ron's eyes. He murmured to himself, "This is the demeanor of a true pirate king." Usopp suddenly jumped up and cheered. "Luffy is so cool. Now he's worthy of being my butler." Usopp's partner, Sanji, lit a new cigarette, smiling with particular satisfaction. Even the idiot captain says something sensible sometimes. Zoro sheathed his sword, a slight smile playing on his lips, HMPA. Finally acting like a captain, Nami wiped her eyes. Then suddenly pulled out her weather stick as if remembering something. So, shouldn't we deal with the problem at hand now? Luffy clenched his fist, the newly awakened gear second power coursing through his veins, of course. Oh, he grinned, revealing a bright smile ready to break through crew. Smoker snapped out of his shock, and white smoke billowed up instantly. Attention everyone. We can't let them escape. But everyone could hear that the killing intent in his voice had diminished considerably. Ron stood on the execution platform, watching Luffy charge into the Marines like a cannonball, and couldn't help but shake his head and chuckle. Luffy has now mastered armament haki and gear second awakening, making him more than capable of dealing with Smoker. Why would he need to break through? It seems this naive captain still hasn't fully grasped his current capabilities. We should go too, Ron turned to Nami and said. Before she could react, he grabbed her slender waist and leaped off the high execution platform. Ah, Nami screamed unexpectedly. The intense feeling of weightlessness made her instinctively hug Ron tightly, burying her face in his chest amidst the whistling wind. She could clearly hear Ron's strong heartbeat, and thought to herself, following the captain is definitely the safest option. Meanwhile, Sanji and Zoro had already charged into the enemy ranks. Sanji's leather shoes drew sharp arcs in the air, each kick precisely striking the joints of the Marine soldiers, temporarily incapacitating them without killing them. Zoro's three swords gleamed coldly in the sun, but he deliberately attacked with the backs of his blades. These Marines stationed in Logtown had a good reputation, so he had no need to kill them. Bangs. A naval lieutenant was struck on the neck with the back of his knife and immediately collapsed to the ground unconscious. Just as Zoro was preparing to continue forward, a sharp sword aura suddenly struck. He quickly dodged to the side, and Shiyu's blade grazed the tip of his nose. Former pirate hunter Zoro, he's become a pirate. How shameful. Tashigi held swords in both hands, her eyes behind her glasses burning with fighting spirit. I won't let you continue to harm my men. Zoro's pupils contracted sharply. The female swordsman before him bore a striking resemblance to Kuina from his memories. In a daze, I felt as if he had returned to the dojo, and the stubborn girl who always beat him was standing in front of him again. Your sword. Zoro unconsciously adopted a more serious stance. Reminds me of an old friend. Tashigi ignored his words, and Shigeru transformed into a streak of silver light, shooting straight at her. Enough with the nonsense. Clang! Zoro's Wado Ikemanji firmly blocked the attack, and the two swords collide, sparking dazzling sparks. He felt the force emanating from the blade, a slight smile playing on his lips. Not bad. The two figures clashed rapidly on the battlefield, and amidst the flashing blades, Zoro deliberately gained the upper hand slowly. Finally, he seized an opening and unleashed the power of all three knives simultaneously. Three-sword-style tiger hunt. Tashiga's Shigeru was blasted away, and she staggered back several steps before finally falling to the ground. Zoro sheathed his sword, looking down at her. Your swordsmanship is impressive. His voice was unusually gentle. I look forward to meeting you again at the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Tashigi trembled with rage, picking up Shigeru and pointing it at him. Get lost. Who wants to meet a pirate of your caliber? Her voice trembled with resentment and tears. Next time we meet, I'll definitely throw you in jail. Zoro smiled noncommittally, turned and left, Tashiga's angry shouts echoing behind him. But he knew that this female swordsman's future would not end there. At the same time, Luffy has already clashed head-on with Smoker. Luffy was enveloped in crimson steam and in gear second mode. His blood boiled like lava. A jet-black armament haki coiled around his fist, gleaming with a metallic sheen in the setting sun. Rubber jet pistol. The fist shot out through the air, so fast that it left a trail of afterimages. Smoker hastily tried to transform into his elemental form to dodge, but was horrified to find that the dark fist had actually slammed into his chest. Bang with a cracking sound of breaking ribs. Smoker was sent flying like a cannonball, crashing through 3 stone walls before coming to a stop. Amidst the rubble struggled to sit up, a trickle of blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. His white cloak covered in dust. Are you kidding me? Smoker wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes filled with disbelief. Even the new recruits from the East Blue are all so domineering. Luffy adjusted his straw hat, grinning with his signature wide smile. No, can we go? These words completely ignited Smoker's fury. He abruptly stood up, white smoke churning like a raging torrent. Arrogant brat. So what if you know armament haki? Suddenly, a layer of jet black color covered the JIT weapon. I'm a Logia-type devil fruit user, and an elite member of the Marine headquarters. Having said that, he transformed into a white blur and attacked. His 10-handed sword aimed straight at Luffy's face with a whooshing sound. Luffy calmly dodged to the side. The super-fast reaction speed brought by Gear Second made his movements as fast as lightning. Bangs, bangs, bangs. Their fists clashed violently in the air, each strike producing a deafening explosion. Smoker grew increasingly alarmed as the fight progressed. The Straw Hat Pirate's speed completely overwhelmed him. What's even more terrifying is that the opponent's armament haki was used to perfection, and every punch accurately predicted the trajectory of his elemental transformation. Rubber jet machine gun. Luffy suddenly changed his tactics, his fists transforming into countless afterimages as they attacked from all directions. Smoker only had time to protect his vitals in his haste, and immediately took dozens of heavy punches. The most deadly thing is that all of these fists are wrapped in armament haki, and every single blow lands squarely on a solid object. Smoker coughed up a mouthful of blood and knelt on one knee. His prized Logia-type advantage vanished in the face of armament haki, and his physical prowess was overwhelmed by Luffy's speed, making him no match for Luffy at all. Luffy gave him no chance to catch his breath, charging forward in a flash, pulling back his right fist to unleash a powerful roar. Gum Gum Jet. The punch, accompanied by a whistling wind, slammed heavily into Smoker's abdomen. Smoker's eyes bulged out, and he flew dozens of meters like a kite with a broken string, finally crashing into the base of the execution platform and losing consciousness. As the dust settled, Luffy put away his stance, and the steam on his body gradually dissipated. He glanced at the unconscious Smoker, then turned and ran towards his companions. Done. Let's go. The naval personnel watching from afar were already terrified. Their invincible White Hunter was actually defeated head-on by a newcomer from the East Daxia Sea. Someone threw down their weapon first, and soon, the clanging of metal hitting the ground filled the air. The fighting was over. The Navy's encirclement had long since crumbled. Ron easily broke through, carrying the still-shaken Nami, while Usopp provided cover fire from behind, and Zoro and Sanji cleared the way on either side. After the last Marine blocking, their path was blasted away by Usopp's cannon. The Straw Hat crew successfully returned to the starship. Raise the sails, set sail. Luffy shouted from the bow of the ship, his red vest fluttering in the sea breeze. Nami finally broke free from Ron's embrace, her face flushed, and gave him a hard punch. Next time you suddenly jump down like that, I'll beat you to death with my little fists. But her threat was clearly ineffective, because the next second she turned around to adjust the sails. Ron smiled and shook his head, looking at the receding town of Rogue. The execution platform reduced to a silhouette in the setting sun. Inside the Admiral's office at Naval Headquarters, Sengoku crossed his hands and rested them on his chin. His brows furrowed so tightly they almost formed a knot. On the projection screen in front of him, the golden phantom of Gal D. Roger on the execution platform in Logtown was frozen in time. His signature smile was vividly displayed on the screen. Click, click. The harsh sound of chewing shattered the silence of the office. Garp sat cross-legged on the sofa, holding a senbei he had taken from Sengoku's drawer, eating it with relish. Crumbs fell onto his dog-head-patterned cloak, rustling down with his movements. Hey, Sengoku. Garp mumbled, taking a sip of tea. Wasn't Luffy already crushing that log pose? What are you still frowning about? He shook the bag of rice crackers. Come on, have some rice crackers to cheer yourself up. Sengoku slammed his fist on the table. Sending documents flying, the problem isn't the record pointer at all. His roar shook the windows. Why would someone who's been dead for over 20 years reappear? What abilities does that little girl named Nami have? Not only can she summon Roger's phantom, but she can also make the phantom produce physical objects. This is completely beyond the common sense of devil fruits. Garp picked at his ear. Shrugging dismissively, it's just a little girl. Why are you so scared? He yawned, stretched, and stood up. I'm sleepy, I'm going to take a nap. If you're really worried. He walked to the door, then turned back with a sly smile. Why don't we send Kizaru to meet them? Get lost. Sengoku grabbed an ink bottle and threw it. But Garp nimbly dodged it, leaving a trail of carefree laughter in the corridor. After the office fell silent again, Sengoku sat back down in his chair exhausted. He pulled up the surveillance footage and repeatedly played the clips of Roger's phantom appearance. In the scene, the deceased Pirate King smiles at the void, as if gazing at him across the river of time. Sengoku's fingers unconsciously tapped the table, the rhythm growing faster and faster. Not the soul fruit, not the underworld fruit. He muttered to himself, fine beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Could it be the power of some kind of ancient weapon? Whatever it is, we absolutely cannot sit idly by and wait to die. Someone come here, Sengoku shouted sternly. Contact Aokiji and have him head towards Logtown to investigate the specifics of Roger's phantom appearance. If necessary, capture Nami the cat thief also. Retrieve all the entries for conjuration abilities from the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia. The setting sun outside the window cast a long shadow of his, which fell on the wanted poster on the table. Sengoku frowned, staring at Nami's figure in the image. A terrifying thought formed in his mind. This seemingly ordinary navigator may very well possess a power capable of overturning the world. The starship cuts through the azure sea under the rising sun, the starboard statue on its prow gleaming. As the voyage progressed, a majestic shadow gradually appeared on the distant horizon, the legendary upside-down mountain, the natural barrier separating the four seas from the Grand Line. Attention everyone, Nami stood on the lookout tower, her short orange hair fluttering in the sea breeze. The entrance to Reverse Mountain is just ahead. Everyone to your positions, Ron stood at the helm, eyes long, slender fingers resting lightly on the gilded wheel. His deep gaze pierced through the morning mist, fixed on the waterway flowing upstream. It's amazing, the seawater is flowing backwards. Sanji had already prepared the specially made securing ropes. Usopp was inspecting the ship's reinforcement devices, and Zoro's 3 swords were already drawn, ready to deal with any unexpected situations. It's about to begin. Ron's deep voice echoed across the deck. The starship's power core hummed, and a pair of shimmering wings unfolded on either side of the hull, a special modification bestowed by the commander, which would now be useful for traversing the upside-down mountain. As the boat entered the upstream channel, the entire vessel was immediately lifted up by the swift current. The star began to climb at a near-vertical angle, its hull emitting a teeth-grinding creak. Usopp clung tightly to the mainmast, his face deathly pale. We're going to fall. We're definitely going to fall, shut up you long nose. Zoro kicked him in the butt, hold on tight. The starship continued to climb against the turbulent current, its hull almost perpendicular to the water's surface. Nami's eyes suddenly widened. Her treasure map system emitted a dazzling golden light, and a brand new treasure map automatically unfolded, with the red dot marking the location right at the summit of Upside Down Mountain. Captain Ron, Nami shouted excitedly, her voice almost drowning out the roar of the water. The treasure hunting system has generated a new treasure map. The location is at the mountain peak. Ron raised an eyebrow, steadily steering the wheel with one hand while smoothing his wind-blown hair with the other. Upside-down mountain peak. That's unexpected. He made a quick decision, we only have one chance. We must finish digging the moment we reach the summit. Nami nodded emphatically, her hands gripping the treasure map tightly until her knuckles turned white. I will definitely seize the opportunity. The others on deck looked surprised upon hearing the news. Usopp clung tightly to the Masthai's voice, trembling. Wait. Will we dig up some more vengeful spirits this time? Those ghosts last time almost scared the pants off me. The cigarette Sanji was smoking was blown out by the strong wind. He squinted and said, I think we might unearth a mountain god or something. Shut up, you two. Zoro drew all three swords simultaneously. Whatever they dig up, just cut it down. As the starship continued to ascend, the air pressure dropped, and everyone felt a throbbing pain in their eardrums. Just as the bow of the ship was about to touch the mountain peak, the treasure map in Nami's hand suddenly transformed into a glittering golden shovel. Without hesitation, she leaped to the bow of the ship and, at the critical moment, plunged the golden shovel deep into the rock strata at the mountain peak. On the little mountaintop, digs, digs, dig. Nami's shouts echoed through the mountains, boom. A dazzling golden light burst forth from beneath the shovel, illuminating the entire skies in the bright light. A parchment drawing with an unusual luster floated down, and Nami nimbly caught it in midair. The moment she saw the contents of the drawing, her pupils contracted sharply, and her lips trembled uncontrollably. This is. Her voice trembled with extreme shock. The drawings are intricately detailed with various complex meteorological symbols. Spiral hurricanes, jagged lightning, wavy ocean currents. At the top, in gold embossed ancient script, is the meteorological map of the Grand Line within 100 miles. Even more amazing is that the patterns on the drawings are changing in real time, as if they can predict the future weather. A weather map that can display the weather over 100 miles of sea. Nami exclaimed, her hands trembling involuntarily. This is practically a divine artifact tailor-made for navigators. Ron glanced at the blueprints, a hint of surprise flashing in his eyes. Looks like we've struck gold this time. A slight smile played on his lips. System made truly extraordinary. Usopp leaned closer, his long nose almost poking into the blueprints. Wow. Doesn't that mean we can avoid all the storms in advance? That's not all. Nami excitedly pointed to a small cyclone marker on the drawing. Look at this. It shows the precise location and trajectory of a miniature cyclone. And even the duration is clearly marked. Zoro crossed his arms and scoffed finally. Some reliable haul. Sanji's eyes lit up. Nami is so cute even when she's excited. Tilda. Ron also looking at the nautical chart. Analyzed, it's true that we can check the weather conditions within 100 miles of Fangyuan. However, the weather on the Grand Line is unpredictable. A downpour could suddenly begin right above us at any moment. So unless there's a sudden emergency happening around us, we can usually avoid bad weather. Everyone nodded. And after thinking about it, they realized it was indeed the case. The moment the starship finally broke through the summit of Upside Down Mountain, everyone held their breath suddenly. The view opened up before us, and the ever-changing seas of the Grand Line unfolded in the morning light. That's Luffy adjusted his straw hat, his eyes gleaming with excitement. The Grand Line. Attention, everyone. Ron suddenly raised his voice, prepare for a dive. The starship's wings were fully deployed, refracting a rainbow of colors in the sunlight. As the ship passed the mountain peak, it shot off like an arrow into the sea below. The wind howled in their ears, and everyone couldn't help but shout with excitement. Bang! The ship crashed heavily onto the sea, sending up waves tens of meters high. When the mist dissipated, the starship was already floating steadily on the surface of the Grand Line, sailing smoothly. Suddenly, the sea ahead churned violently, and a huge shadow emerged from the depths. With a deafening roar, a giant whale the size of an island burst out of the water, spouting water that shot straight into the sky and formed a magnificent rainbow in the sunlight. Wow! Luffy's eyes instantly turned into stars, and he leaned against the ship's railing, drooling. What a huge fish! It looks incredibly delicious. His arm was already outstretched, ready to grab it. We can have a whole fish feast tonight, rubber rubber. Stop, Ron swiftly grabbed Luffy's straw hat. You can't eat this, his voice was unusually serious. It's the most important friend of one of our future crew members. The deck fell silent. Everyone exchanged bewildered glances. Usopp's long nose twitched, a future partner. Nami put away the weather map and looked at Ron thoughtfully. You mean? We'll meet the owner of this whale. Ron smiled but didn't answer. Only gently patting Luffy's head, you'll understand when you see Doctor. Crocus. Zoro raised an eyebrow. Crocus who? Can he use a sword? No, he was an old ship's doctor, Ron explained. Sanji lit a cigarette. Lost in thought they even know things like this. The captain's system is truly omnipotent. Luffy finally snapped out of his culinary reverie and tilted his head. Asking so this big fish is a friend of a friend. That's one way to understand it. Ron looked at the whale ramming its head against the red line. A hint of pity in his eyes. Its name is Laboon. And it's been waiting here for its master for 50 years. Nami's eyes suddenly widened. Wait. You said it's been crashing into the red line. Doesn't that mean? She hurriedly unfolded the weather map, and indeed found that the currents in the nearby sea were somewhat turbulent. Just as everyone was talking, Laboon let out another mournful cry. The sound so loud that the mast of the starship trembled. Luffy suddenly fell silent. A rare serious expression on his face. It sounds so sad. Ron nodded. It's waiting for a promise to return. As the starship slowly entered the harbor of Twin Shoals, the entire ship shimmered with a dazzling golden light under the sun. The diamond-encrusted figurehead, the gilded railings, and the gem-decorated mast all exude ultimate luxury. Zump. Kuroka's atop the watchtower dropped his binoculars. His eyes widened and his jaw nearly dislocated. This well-informed former doctor of the Pirate King's ship was now gaping open like a country bumpkin who had never seen the world before. What kind of ship is this? He rubbed his eyes, afraid he was seeing things. I've lived most of my life, and this is the first time I've ever seen such an outrageous pirate ship. Even Roger's Oro Jackson back then didn't have such luxurious decorations. Crocus even wondered if he was seeing things. Could those diamonds embedded in the railing be real diamonds? The starship gracefully docked. Lowering its solid gold gangway, Crocus strode over. His wrinkles smoothing out in surprise. Hey, are you guys really legitimate pirates? Or are you some kind of royalty out here experiencing life? Luffy was the first to jump off the ship, his straw hat swaying gently in the sea breeze. He grinned, hee hee old man, I'm going to be the Pirate King. A legitimate pirate, of course. Crocus's pupils contracted slightly the moment his gaze fell upon the straw hat. A knowing glint flashed in his eyes, weathered by time. Those long-forgotten memories surged forth like a tide. Once upon a time, a young man wearing a straw hat stood before him and said the same thing. I see, and Crocus murmured softly, his surprise gradually turning into a kind smile. He reached out and patted Luffy on the shoulder. So hard that Luffy stumbled. Young people who chase their dreams are always free. Ron walked slowly down the gangway, his sharp suit making him look more like an aristocrat than a pirate. He bowed politely to Crocus. I've heard so much about you. Dr. Crocus. Oh, Crocus raised a white eyebrow. Young people these days actually recognize an old man like me. Nami waved the weather map in her hand and interjected. We just saw Laboon mentioning Laboon. Crocus's eyes softened immediately. That silly boy. He turned and pointed to the hut. Since you're here, come in and have a cup of tea. Tell me how you managed to calm that stubborn fellow down. Just then, Usopp suddenly pointed at the hut behind Crocus and exclaimed, Wait, what's that on the roof? Following the direction he pointed, everyone saw a strangely shaped giant pointer on the roof of the small house, the very same pointer to eternity they had seen in Logtown. Crocus turned around following everyone's gaze, then suddenly burst into laughter. What? Interested in this? He winked mysteriously. This is a valuable record of all the flight paths. Forget it, old man, we're not interested. Luffy waved his hand casually. his expression under his straw hat completely nonchalant. Yesterday I even crushed the permanent Pokémon that leads to Laugh Tale. Ha 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 ha, Crocus laughed so hard he almost fell over. His beard trembling, you little rascal. You really know how to make up stories to amuse this old man. He wiped away tears of laughter, a permanent pointer. Those things have been extinct for ages, haven't they? Let alone one leading to the final island. Luffy simply shrugged, neither arguing nor continuing the conversation. He curiously looked around at the desolate lighthouse and suddenly asked, "Old Manwee, are you alone in a place like this?" Crocus's smile faded and his gaze fell on Laboon, which was crashing into the red line in the distance. The setting sun cast a long shadow of him, making him appear exceptionally lonely for a promise. The old man's voice lowered. "I'm helping Labu wait for its family to return." He slowly recounted the promise that spanned half a century. Decades ago, a pirate crew from the West Blue brought the young Laboon into the Grand Line. Because whales cannot cross the reverse mountain, they agreed to return to pick him up after circumnavigating the world. And so 50 years passed. Crocus shook his head, his wrinkles etched with the marks of time. The Grand Line is fraught with danger. Only a handful of pirate crews have managed to circumnavigate the globe and return to their starting point. He sighed, having been away for so long. "I'm afraid he's already." The sea breeze suddenly turned fierce, and in the distance came the mournful cry of Labu. As if in response to the old man's words, the waves lapped against the shore, making a lonely sound. Nami unconsciously gripped the hem of her clothes and burst into tears. Laboon was so pitiful, Usopp sniffed and held back his tears. And even Zoro fell silent. Only Luffy continued to look directly into Crocus's eyes, his gaze astonishingly clear. "They'll definitely be back," Luffy suddenly shouted, his voice echoing across the strait. "A promise is a promise," Crocus paused, then gave a bitter smile. "Youth is wonderful. To still be so naive and believe, it's not naivete." Luffy slammed his straw hat down, the sea breeze making his red vest flutter loudly. "A promise kept until death." These words struck Crocus's heart like a heavy hammer. The old man's eyes glazed over for a moment, as if he saw another figure wearing a straw hat through Luffy. After a long pause, he said softly, "If only everyone thought like you." Just then Ron slowly stepped forward. The setting sun cast its last rays upon his tall figure as he gazed at labor, still stubbornly ramming against the red earth. His voice, though not loud, carried with exceptional clarity throughout the bay. "Laboon, you were right to stand firm." Ron's voice seemed to possess a magical power, instantly silencing the frantically crashing whale. "The Rumbar pirates, there are still survivors." These words struck Crocus like a thunderbolt. The old man staggered back 2 steps, his wrinkled face filled with disbelief. What?" His trembling finger pointed at Ron. "How do you know about this? And you even know about the Rumbar pirates?" Luffy curled his lip, looking at Crocus with disdain. "Old man, you're really ignorant. My brother Ron knows everything." Usopp chimed in, his long nose practically poking Crocus's face. "Exactly. You don't even know this, what a country bumpkin." He smugly shook his head. "Our captain is an all-powerful man." Kuroka's was speechless, his face flushed red. He looked at the group of young people with confusion, wondering why they trusted this young man named Ron so much. That kind of unconditional trust is almost like handing your life over to the other person. Laboon let out a long cry, its enormous eyes gleaming with anticipation. Ron continued, "Someday in the future, we will bring that survivor back here." He said solemnly, "This is a new agreement." Nami quietly tugged at Ron's sleeve. "Hey, are you serious? Is anyone from that pirate crew really alive?" Ron nodded slightly. "Brook, the skeleton musician, was currently in the Devil's Triangle. He whispered, you'll find out when we get there." Crocus was still in shock and couldn't recover. 50 years of waiting, 50 years of doubt. And today he actually saw hope in this mysterious young man. If this is true, The old man's voice choked with emotion. Labu can finally get what he wants. Luffy suddenly jumped onto the ship's railing and waved vigorously at Laboon. Did you hear that? Everyone, you have to wait for us this time. Labu let out a joyful long cry, its huge tail slapping the surface of the sea, stirring up towering waves. It no longer crashed into the red earths, but instead circled the starship once, as if expressing its gratitude. Crocus, watching this heartwarming scene, felt tears welling up in his cloudy eyes. He suddenly bowed deeply to Ron. Whoever you are, thank you for bringing hope to Laboon. Ron helped the old man up, a mysterious smile playing on his lips. No need for thanks. It's just an agreement between us. Crocus nodded slightly, and then Ron's voice continued. Mr. Crocus, his voice was casual, yet it made the air around him freeze. Whatever your plans. Ron's long fingers tapped lightly on the gunwale. Remember, don't mess with me or my crew. Before he finished speaking, an invisible pressure was suddenly released. Crocus's pupils shrank. This former doctor of the Pirate King, who had experienced countless storms, suddenly felt a chill creep up his spine. Otherwise, Ron slowly adjusted his cuffs, a cold glint in his eyes. I don't care about the Pirate King's left hand or right wrist. He raised his head, a crimson glint in his eyes. Destroy them all. These words struck Crocus's heart like a heavy hammer. His pupils contracted, and his wrinkled face was filled with shock. He stared incredulously at the young man before him. Not only did the man know the secrets of the Rumbar pirates, but he even knew information like the Pirate King's right and left hands. Let's go. The moment Ron turned around, his terrifying aura vanished, as if everything just now was an illusion. He casually waved his hand, and the starship's engine emitted a low hum. Luffy was the first to jump onto the ship, his smile still bright under his straw hat. Goodbye, old man's. Remember to wait for us to return with reinforcements. Nami glanced thoughtfully at Crocus, who was standing there dumbfounded, then turned around and adjusted the sails. Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp also boarded the ship. The starship slowly sailed away from the harbor, its hull gleaming in the setting sun. Crocus stood on the shore for a long time, until the dreamlike pirate ship became a tiny dot on the horizon. This Ron, the old man murmured to himself, his voice filled with unprecedented solemnity. Just who is he? He suddenly realized that he might have just witnessed the beginning of a new era. The next day, early mornings, Nami stood at the bow of the starship, the magical weather chart in her hand gleaming faintly in the sunlight. She carefully examined the ever-changing weather markings on the chart, her slender finger lightly tapping a certain spot. There's a thunderstorm ahead, she said, turning to Ron at the helms, her short orange hair fluttering in the sea breeze. But we can go around it from here. She pointed to a winding blue line on the map. This ocean current will perfectly guide us around the storm and save us at least half a day of sailing. Zoro nodded and quickly turned the helms. The starship immediately adjusted its course, its gilded hull drawing a graceful arc on the azure sea. This thing is so convenient, Usopp exclaimed, leaning against the ship's railing, looking at the dark thunderclouds to his left. Not only can it avoid dangerous weather, but it can also find the best course. Sanji walked over, a cigarette dangling from his lips, and handed Nami a glass of special orange juice. Nami-san's sailing skills paired with this amazing picture are simply unbeatable. Zoro, leaning against the mast with his 3 swords in his arms, nodded in rare agreement. It certainly saved a lot of trouble. Nami proudly waved the weather map, stretched out her right hand, revealing a small and exquisite device, a crystal-clear recording pointer with 7-colored light constantly flowing inside. You thought that was all, she said excitedly. Look at this, the rapid magnetic recording pointer. A system reward. Luffy craned his neck and peered closer. What's this? It looks so pretty on the Grand Line. Nami explained patiently, lightly tapping the log pose's surface, causing starlight-like highlights to shimmer and dance on it. We have to wait for the log pose to accumulate enough magnetic force before it can point to the next island. This usually takes several days, and sometimes even a year. Nami paused deliberately, observing her companion's curious expressions. Before continuing but with this, any island can complete magnetic storage in less than a day. What? Usopp jumped up dramatically. That's blatant cheating. Sanji took a deep drag on his cigarette. Doesn't that mean we can skip those boring islands and head straight for? That's right, Nami snapped her fingers. We can selectively stop, greatly shortening the voyage time. Ron chuckled and reached out to ruffle Nami's hair. System products are always top-notch. Just then Usopp in the lookout tower suddenly shouted, I can see an island. Everyone rushed to the bow of the ship, where a uniquely shaped island gradually emerged on the distant horizon. As they drew closer, the most striking feature was a huge banner hanging at the island's entrance, bearing the words in bright red lettering. A warm welcome to all pirates. Luffy danced with excitement. Wow. The people here are so hospitable. There's bound to be an endless feast. Zoro frowned. Something's not right. This is too deliberate. A hint of amusement flashed in Ron's eyes. Interesting. Looks like our first stop won't be boring. Nami also sensed something was wrong. Everyone be careful. She whispered there might be a trap here. But Luffy had already stretched out his arm and grabbed the ship's railing. Shouting impatiently, who cares, let's go see first. As long as there's meat to eat. When the starship docked at the Whiskey Peak Pier, a burst of enthusiastic cheers erupted on the island. And dozens of brightly dressed residents, waving colorful flags and beaming with exaggerated smiles, rushed forward. Welcome, welcome. Distinguished guests who have traveled from afar. Please be sure to attend our welcome banquet. Luffy craned his neck excitedly looking around, his mouth watering. Meat, I can smell the aroma of meat. Ron glanced around at the hospitable residents, a meaningful smile playing on his lips. He turned to his companions and said, go and have a big meal. But, he emphasized, be careful not to overindulge. Then he looked at Nami. I'll go treasure hunting with Nami, and we'll meet up afterwards. Upon hearing the words treasure hunting, everyone except Luffy shuddered involuntarily. Usopp's face instantly turned deathly pale. Treasure hunting again. Recalling his previous 2 experiences of unearthing ghosts, his legs began to tremble uncontrollably. Although he had unearthed valuable items like weather maps, the probability of unearthing a ghost was still not to be underestimated. Zoro wasn't particularly interested in treasure hunting. I'd rather drink. Sanji lit a new cigarette, shook his head and said, I'll go see if there's any lady in the kitchen who needs help. Even Luffy, who is always enthusiastic about treasure, shook his head, as if he had given up on the adventure of treasure hunting, and just stared longingly in the direction of the banquet hall. Nami, hands on her hips, glared at her spineless companions. Hey, what kind of attitude is that? She angrily waved the treasure map in her hand. Maybe this time we'll dig up real treasure. Ron chuckled and patted Nami on the shoulder. Let's go, let them enjoy the feast. He glanced around meaningfully. If we delay any longer, the show will begin. Luffy and his crew cheered as they rushed into the banquet hall, quickly surrounded by enthusiastic residents. Meanwhile, Ron and Nami quietly slipped away from the crowd and headed towards the treasure location marked by the system. They noticed that several figures were silently following behind them. The leader, a man wearing a cowboy hat, whispered to his companion, follow those two. Treasure hunting HMPH if there really is treasure. We'd better move now. He licked his lips, a greedy glint in his eyes. We can't let such a fat fish get away. Another masked man chuckled sinisterly. Boss, you're brilliant. Once they dig up something good, we'll. The man in the cowboy hat made a throat-slitting gesture, and the group laughed silently as they continued to follow Ron and Nami ahead, using the shadows of the buildings as cover. At that moment, Ron, who was walking in front, suddenly turned his head slightly and whispered to Nami, there are 6 little mice following behind. A playful glint flashed in his eyes. Want to play with them? Nami shook her head. No rush. Treasure hunting is the most important thing. If it's just something bad, we can just give it to them. Whatever, the two exchanged a smile. Then deliberately quickened their pace, heading towards the most secluded cemetery on Whiskey Peak. Their pursuers, however, were completely unaware that they were following something terrifying. It's on the waters of the Grand Line. Aokiji rode his old bicycle lazily, the sea breeze ruffling his tousled curly hair. He had just received an urgent message from Fleet Admiral Sengoku, ordering him to immediately investigate Nami's special abilities and the truth behind the incident of Roger's phantom reappearance. This is troublesome. Aokiji yawned, pulling a nautical chart from his pocket. Let me see. After the Straw Hat crew crosses Reverse Mountain, their first stop should be... His finger stopped at Whiskey Peak. On this is it. He slowly adjusted his direction, and the moment the bicycle tires touched the sea surface, a thick layer of ice crystals immediately spread out, forming a straight ice path on the sea. Aokiji rode leisurely across the middle of the sea, leaving a long trail of ice behind him. To be able to recreate Roger's phantom, Aokiji stroked his chin thoughtfully. If such an ability truly existed, it would be incredibly dangerous. Just when he thought this mission might be interesting, the bicycle beneath him suddenly burst into a dazzling golden light. Aokiji rarely showed a surprised expression. Before he could react, the entire bicycle began to shake violently, as if it were being pulled into the sky by some invisible force. Hey, what are you talking about? The bicycle's going to fly. Aokiji hurriedly grabbed the handlebars with both hands, but the bicycle had already lifted him into the air. The ice floes on the sea surface melted rapidly as they lost their ability to sustain themselves, and Aokiji was thus carried into the sky by his bicycle. He tried to activate the Ice Fruit's power, but found that he had no control over this sudden flight. What's going on? Aokiji's sunglasses reflected a blinding golden light, and a rare look of panic appeared on his usually lazy face. Just as he was about to fly into the clouds, the bicycle suddenly flashed with golden light, and he and the bicycle disappeared into the air. The sea below returned to calm as if nothing had happened, with only a few partially melted ice floes as proof that a naval admiral had once parade a few minutes ago. In the back hills of Whiskey Peak, Ron and Nami traversed a dense cactus forest and finally arrived at the location marked on the treasure map. The location was secluded, surrounded by various wooden crates and barrels. Clearly a secret hideout. Several gold coins and jewels were scattered on the ground, making it look like a place where pirates temporarily divided their loot. Looks like we've arrived just in time, Ron chuckled. Looking around, all these pirates have gone to welcome Luffy and his crew. There's not even a gatekeeper left here. Nami rubbed her hands together excitedly, her golden shovel gleaming in the sunlight. Great. This time we can finally dig for treasure in peace and quiet. However, at that moment, a series of chaotic footsteps suddenly came from behind. The 6 pirates who had been following them finally couldn't contain themselves any longer and rushed out. The leader, a man in a cowboy hat brandishing a musket, shouted angrily, "Stop, that's our treasure." Hand over the treasure map. Nami instantly flew into a rage, her short orange hair standing on end. Are you kidding me? This is clearly my treasure map. Recalling her experiences in Logtown and the naval base, she gritted her teeth and said, "Why does everyone claim it as their own?" The man in the cowboy hat grinned maliciously, raising his weapon. Enough talk at Whiskey Peak. All the treasure belongs to Baroque Workshop. Brothers, charge! Just as Ron was about to make his move, Nami had already reached her limit without saying a word. She swung her golden shovel and dug fiercely into the marked spot. You bunch of bastards! Nami cursed as she dug. I'll dig up all your treasure. This action thoroughly enraged the pirates, who roared and charged forwards, swords and muskets all aimed at the 2 men. The man in the cowboy hat pulled the trigger, and bullets whistled out at this critical moment. The ground Nami had dug suddenly burst forth with dazzling golden light. A golden beam shot into the sky, deflecting all the incoming bullets. What the hell? The pirates retreated in terror suddenly. A series of jingling sounds came from the golden light. And then a bicycle shot out of the beam of light at an astonishing speed. The wheels were still spinning at high speed, and the bells hanging on the handlebars were jingling. "Get out of the way, a deeps." Panicked male voice came from within the golden light. Before anyone could react, a tall figure tumbled out of the golden light, still clutching the back seat of the bicycle. He rolled several times on the ground before regaining his balance. His navy coat was covered in mud, and a few blades of grass were stuck in his tousled curly hair. As the golden light gradually faded, an eerie silence descended upon the scene. Ron's pupils suddenly contracted. He recognized the tall figure who had crawled out of the pit in a disheveled state, Admiral Aokiji, one of the Navy's top combatants. This unexpected turn of events caused even the usually composed him to show a rare expression of shock. The treasure hunting system is insane. It has absolutely no bottlenecks. Nami was completely stunned. The golden shovel in her hand clattered to the ground. She mechanically turned to Ron. Did I dig up something wrong?" Her voice was full of disbelief. Digging for treasure and finding a living person. The bottom of the pit was indeed piled high with glittering gold and silver treasures. But at this moment, who had the mind to care about those? Nami instinctively took 2 steps back. This treasure hunting system was getting more and more outrageous. Last time she dug up a ghost, and this time she dug up a living person, dressed in a Navy uniform. It was obvious she'd gotten herself into trouble. The Baroque Works agents who had been following them were now terrified. The man in the cowboy hat's legs went weak, and he collapsed to his knees. Admiral Aokiji. His voice trembled uncontrollably. It's all over." His companions were even more ashen-faced. Some were so frightened they wet themselves. Anyone who's ever been on the Grand Line knows what encountering a Marine Admiral means. It's a situation with almost certain death. Upon hearing this, Nami's face turned deathly pale instantly. Her wide eyes were filled with disbelief and terror. Her slender fingers trembled uncontrollably, and even her lips were quivering slightly. A Navy admiral, her voice suddenly rose an octave, sounding particularly jarring in the quiet back hills. "Are you kidding me? I actually dug up a Navy admiral with a shovel." She rushed towards Ron, grabbing his clothes in terror, and cried out, "What the hell is wrong with this damn system? Last time it dug up a ghost, that was bad enough. But this time it dug up a living person. And one of the Navy's top fighters at that." Nami's voice trembled with tears. Could anything be more outrageous than this? Ron was dizzy from being shaken, but he still maintained a calm expression. "Calm down, Nami." "Calm down," Nami released Ron's, clutching her head and crouching on the ground. "How can I calm down? That's a Marine Admiral." She suddenly remembered something and looked at Aokiji in horror. "We're doomed. We're going to be arrested and thrown in jail. And that idiot Luffy is still eating and drinking his fill in town." Aokiji also looked completely bewildered. He brushed the dirt off his head and looked around. "Oh dear. Where am I?" He looked down at his mud-covered navy coat, then at the terrified pirates. "You guys look familiar." The man in the cowboy hat suddenly yelled hysterically. "Run!" The group scrambled to escape. Although Aokiji wasn't quite sure what was going on, his instinct to catch pirates made him instinctively raise his right hand. Ice Age. A chilling blast of air swept through the area in an instant, freezing the pirates, who were still in their fleeing posture, into crystalline ice sculptures under the sunlight. The ice sculptures refracted a rainbow of colors, possessing a strange and eerie beauty. Nami gasped and instinctively hid behind Ron. "That's a Navy admiral. A legendary monster-level fighter." Ron, however, had regained his composure. He stepped forward, shielding Nami behind him. What an unexpected encounter. "Admiral Aokiji," his tone held a hint of amusement. "I wonder why the Navy's top combatant would emerge from the trap we dug." Aokiji then noticed the two people in front of him. His gaze lingered on Ron for a moment, then fell on Nami. And he seemed to understand something, so that's how it is. Was it you two who did this? S said through. Aokiji scratched his head. I was clearly on my way to track you down. And suddenly I ended up here. That's an absurd ability, you little thief. Nami was almost in tears. I was just digging for treasure according to the map. I never expected to dig you up instead. Aokiji watched as the golden shovel in Nami's hand gradually disappeared, and realized is it some kind of devil fruit ability. Just as Nami was about to speak, Ron nodded, that's right. It's some kind of treasure-digging ability. But what you dig up is uncertain, so that's how it is. An unintentional act. That explains why Roger's phantom was unearthed. Aokiji's mutterings weren't loud, but Ron and Nami heard them clearly. It turned out that news of their discovery of Roger's phantom had already reached the ears of the Marine headquarters. Nami looked nervously at Ron. What if this general suddenly attacked? Wouldn't they all be wiped out? Don't worry. Ron patted Nami's shoulder to comfort her and Nami nodded. Then hid behind Ron just then. Aokiji suddenly yawned, what a hassle. He turned and walked towards his bicycle. Mission accomplished, investigation complete. I'll take a nap first, as he spoke. He actually lay down on the bicycle. Looking like he was about to sleep, Nami was taken aback. Why was this Marine Admiral acting so unpredictably? Why not arrest them? Aokiji yawned lazily. Slowly got up from the ground and dusted off his coat. Young people these days are so noisy. He scratched his fluffy curly hair. Do as you please. But don't worry, I'm on vacation today. I'm acting like an ordinary person. Nami's expression froze instantly. A vacation. Aokiji pulled out an eye patch from somewhere and put it on. That's right. I just happened, to fall here from the sky. He pointed to the still glowing crater, speaking of which. Your treasure hunting skills are quite interesting. Nami finally recovered from her shock. Staring warily at Aokiji, you really aren't going to capture us. Aokiji lay on the bicycle. Hands behind his head. Why are we arresting you? He said lazily, my mission was just to investigate. Not to arrest anyone. The investigation is now complete. The mission is accomplished. As he spoke, he lay down on the spot and fell fast asleep, heaven snoring. Just then, another violent explosion echoed through the town, and Zoro's roar and Sanji's curses could be faintly heard. Never mind, let's go check on Luffy and the others first. Nami looked at the sleeping Aokiji and slowly backed away. Ron nodded. I really don't know what this guy's up to. Let's go then. The atmosphere in the banquet hall of Whiskey Peak was gradually becoming tense. Luffy sat amidst a mountain of empty plates, patting his round belly and letting out a satisfied burp. So delicious. Is there any more meat? The pirates disguised as townspeople could no longer maintain their fake smiles. A burly man wearing a chef's hat, veins bulging on his forehead, gripped his knife so tightly it creaked. This monster has already eaten enough food for 30 people, boss. One of the henchmen whispered in the leader's ear. Why isn't the drug working yet? These guys' appetites are only getting better. In the corners, Usopp was excitedly recounting his heroic feat of fighting a naval captain to a group of townspeople, completely oblivious to the increasingly grim expressions on the faces of his listeners. Zoro sat alone at the bar, having already drunk more than a dozen barrels of alcohol. Yet his eyes grew increasingly clear. Something's not right. The head of Baroque Works agents secretly gestured. Prepare to move out of the way sooner rather than later. The drug will take effect eventually anyway. Just as this group of disguised pirates was about to drop their friendly facade, the banquet hall doors were suddenly flung open. Stop. A blue-haired girl rushed in, followed by a tall, curly-haired man. This is a pirate trap. They've poisoned the food. The entire hall fell silent instantly. Luffy tilted his head, looking at the two who had suddenly appeared. Who are you? I'm Vivi, the girl cried out anxiously. Run, this isn't a town that welcomes pirates. It's Baroque Works hideout. The pirate captain's face instantly darkened. I knew something was off about you too. He ripped off his disguise apron, revealing his combat suit underneath. Since you've chosen to betray the organization, then go to hell with these idiots. Attack. With this command, dozens of disguised pirates simultaneously drew their weapons, and a hidden compartment in the banquet hall wall suddenly opened, revealing cannons concealed within. Princess Vivi's face turned deathly pale. It's over. It's too late, but just then Zorro suddenly stood up. His 3 swords already drawn, finally stopping pretending. A cold smile curled at the corner of his lips. I've been waiting impatiently for this. Luffy rubbed his stomach and stood up. So you guys are bad guys, his eyes suddenly sharpened. Then don't be shy, Usopp flipped onto the table, ha ha ha. I saw through your tricks a long time ago. He activated his observation haki, and his slingshot was already firmly aimed at the most troublesome hidden sniper. The pirate captain stared wide-eyed in disbelief. Impossible. Those medicines, how could they? Zoro scoffed. Back in the day, we were trained every day by the captain with even worse food. He assumed the starting stance for his 3-sword style. This isn't even an appetizer. With a deafening roar, the battle officially began. Princess Vivi stared in shock at the scene before her. These seemingly carefree pirates were all ridiculously strong. Especially that Straw Hat boy, who sent more than a dozen enemies flying with a single punch. Who are they? Vivi murmured to herself. The curly-haired man beside her Icarus said seriously. It seems we've encountered someone extraordinary. Perhaps they are a turning point for our country. The battle was overwhelmingly one-sided. Not because the pirates were weak, but because the Straw Hat crew was too strong. With the last Baroque Works agent blasted away by Luffy's powerful punch, the banquet hall finally returned to calm. Amidst the broken tables and chairs and scattered weapons, dozens of unconscious enemies lay strewn about. Few done, Luffy clapped his hands, his smile still bright under his straw hat. As if the fierce battle just now was just a game. Just then, the door was suddenly pushed open and Nami and Ron rushed in. Nami looked around and, seeing that her companions were all safe and sound, breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness you're all right. We were so worried. Nami suddenly stopped speaking and her gaze fell on Princess Vivi. The blue-haired girl was standing anxiously in the corner, her hands clasped tightly to her chest, her eyes full of worry. Who are you? Vivi took a deep breath and stepped forward solemnly. Please help Alabasta. Her voice trembled slightly with emotion. Our country is facing an unprecedented crisis. As Vivi recounts her story, a shocking conspiracy gradually comes to light. Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, is secretly manipulating Baroque Works in an attempt to overthrow the Alabasta regime. He is using dancing powder to create drought and incite conflict between the people and the royal family, bringing the entire country to the brink of civil war. People are killing each other, and it's all Crocodile's conspiracy. Vivi's eyes filled with tears. I really don't know who else I can turn to for help. Just as Luffy was listening intently with his head tilted, the system's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Ding. God-level choice system triggered. Option A, hand Vivi over to the Navy. Reward bounty increased by 50 million berries. Option B, ignore the request and continue sailing. Reward a Sea King roast meat feast. Option C, escort Vivi back to her country. Reward Conqueror's Haki Awakening beginner. Luffy tilted his head and thought for a moment, then suddenly patted his stomach. I'm full now, so I'll pass on the grilled meat. He looked at Vivi, his eyes becoming more serious than ever before. That crocodile, he actually made the people of an entire country kill each other. His fists clenched involuntarily, and a raging fire ignited in his eyes beneath his straw hat. Unforgivable. Therefore I choose C. Selection complete. Option C. Rewards will be distributed upon completion of the task. Luffy suddenly looked up. The shadow of his straw hat obscuring his expression. Will help you. That crocodile, I'm going to beat him to a pulp. Vivi's tears finally welled up. Thank you all. Usopp leaned over and patted her on the shoulder. Don't worry. With Me the king of snipers here, even the 7 warlords of the sea are no match for us. Although his legs were still trembling, Zoro sheathed all 3 swords simultaneously, perfect timing to test my new techniques on one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Sanji lit a cigarette. It's my honor to serve the beautiful Princess Tilda. Nami was also very excited. Alabasta. I heard it's a huge place. I wonder what kind of treasures we can dig up. We have to go. Ron stood to the side, a faint smile playing on his lips, listening to Luffy's decision, a hint of approval flashing in his eyes. I support Luffy's decision. Crocodile's actions are truly unforgivable. As the system host, the tenfold reward he received will allow his conqueror's Haki to directly advance to the intermediate level. Thinking of this, Ron unconsciously gathered an invisible pressure at his fingertips, intermediate conqueror's Haki, which was considered upper middle level in the entire One Piece world. It's important to know that even the world-ruling IM and the legendary Joy Boy only reached a high level of conqueror's Haki. Intermediate conqueror's Haki, Ron assessed in his mind, should be enough to handle the challenges of the new world. With my current strength, combined with intermediate conqueror's Haki, Ron's gaze swept over his companions who were engaged in a heated discussion. Admiral-level combat power is not a problem. Nami seemed to notice his distraction and gently nudged him with her elbow. What are you thinking about? Ron snapped out of his reverie, a mysterious smile spreading across his face. I was wondering if there's some special treasure hidden in the Alabasta Desert. Really? Nami's eyes instantly turned to the shape of a believer. But then she narrowed them warily. Could it be that they've dug up something strange again? Probably not, Ron wasn't sure either after all. The treasure hunting system could unearth anything. Furthermore, the awakening of intermediate-level conquerors Haki means that he will truly possess the ability to contend with marine admirals and Yonka-level powerhouses. Vivi watched as everyone readily agreed to help Alabasta, tears welling up in her eyes. She clasped her hands together in front of her chest and bowed deeply. Once the crisis in Alabasta is resolved, the royal family will certainly repay everyone's kindness. Nami's eyes immediately lit up, and she held up one finger. No need for any other thanks. Just give it to Bailey. She was already calculating in her mind how much reward she should ask for. Vivi couldn't help but chuckle, and nodded earnestly. I definitely will. Just as everyone was preparing to board the ship and leave, and pushed open the banquet hall doors, a tall figure made everyone stop in their tracks. A man wearing a white suit vest and a navy coat was seen leaning lazily against a bicycle. He was wearing a green eye mask and seemed to be dozing off. He only slowly raised his head when he heard the door open. Aras, are we finally done talking? Aokiji's lazy voice rang out. Nami's face turned deathly pale instantly. She screamed and lunged behind Ron, clutching his clothes tightly with both hands. You said you wouldn't come to capture us. Her voice trembled. Why did you follow us here? The other companions stared curiously at the strange man. Usopp even dared to walk up and poke the old bicycle with his slingshot. Your car needs replacing, Usopp commented. Feigning expertise, the tires are worn down. And the brakes aren't working properly, are they? Nami nearly fainted upon seeing this. Usopp. Get away from him, she practically screamed. He's Aokiji, one of the 3 admirals of the Navy. What? Usopp's long nose froze instantly, and his legs began to tremble uncontrollably. He mechanically turned his head and met Aokiji's ambiguous smile. He immediately felt a chill run from the soles of his feet to his head. In that moment of extreme terror, a sudden inspiration flashed through Usopp's mind. What if he could show off a little at this crucial moment? That must be extraordinary. Usopp suddenly straightened up, the fear on his face vanishing, replaced by an unfathomable calm. He looked directly into Aokiji's eyes, his voice deep and powerful. So what if he's a marine admiral? Usopp stepped forward slowly, each step seemingly on a certain rhythm, before me. The king of snipers Usopp is nothing more than that. Ding, the ultimate bragging system has been triggered. An epic display of bravado detected, facing Admiral Aokiji. Usopp's pupils suddenly contracted as the reward displayed by the system flashed through his mind. He could swim freely in the deep sea like a fish. And his strong physique could even capsize warships with his bare hands. This was simply the ability he had always dreamed of. He swallowed Hardhi's legs still trembling, but his eyes were already burning with fighting spirit. This could be a life-changing opportunity. We have to keep up this act to the very end, HMPH Admiral. Usopp suddenly ripped off his bandana, letting his afro fly wildly in the sea breeze. He deliberately looked down at Aokiji with a condescending gaze. Back in the East Blue, I beat up at least 56 guys like you. As he spoke, he swaggered over to Aokiji's bicycle, plopped down on the back seat and even crossed his legs. This action almost made Nami scream. And Zoro and the others were dumbfounded. There's a limit to showing off, isn't there? Aokiji raised an eyebrow with interest. Oh. Do you know why my bounty is only 8 million berries? Usopp lowered his voice mysteriously, tapping his temple with his finger. Because I've only ever shown my strength at 8 million berries. He paused deliberately, letting the sea breeze make his cloak flutter, like now. My observation haki has covered the entire island. And I can see those pirates on the other side of the island who were trying to escape, but have already been frozen into ice sculptures. Speaking of this, Aokiji's expression finally turned serious. He slowly removed his eye patch, his icy blue eyes staring directly at Usopp. Interesting. Looks like I underestimated you. He did indeed freeze the group of pirates with a wave of his hand. But when he made the moves, he had already scanned his surroundings with observation haki and didn't find any fleeing pirates or anyone spying on him. How did this long-nosed guy know that? There's only one possibility: what he said is true. This guy's observation haki has truly surpassed his. Are the Straw Hat Pirates really full of hidden talents? Just then Usopp suddenly jumped off the back seat, turned around, and waved to Aokiji with his back to him. Let's go, guys. We're going to Alabasta to rid the world of evil. I'm sure the righteous Marine Admiral won't stop us. After saying that, he walked calmly toward the starship, his back already soaked with cold sweat. But he maintained a composed and imposing demeanor. With each step, a deep footprint is left in the sand. Who can blame them when the sand is so soft? Ding, mission complete. Reward issued, Merman Physique Fusion in progress. Fusion complete. Usopp suppressed the urge to burst into laughter, shouting inwardly, we've hit the jackpots. Now I'm no longer the weakest member of the team. Nami was completely stunned. She tugged at Ron's sleeve and whispered, Usopp. He wouldn't really, who knows? Maybe our sniper has been hiding his true strength all along. Aokiji watched the group's departing figures, thoughtfully stroking his chin. The Straw Hat Pirates are much more interesting than the intelligence reports suggested. However, the matter of Crocodile in Alabasta must also be reported. But before that, Aokiji then took out a Den Mushi and dialed a number. A moment later, the Den Mushi answered, Hey. Smoker, send some men to clean up this mess. What? Kyuzen, I have to clean up your mess again. Stop talking nonsense. You wouldn't even want free sales targets. You wait. The starship traced a graceful path across the azure sea, sunlight illuminating its gilded hull and refracting it into a dazzling display. Yet beneath this tranquil surface, danger was lurking. Ron, the island is just ahead. Nami unfolded the weather and nautical chart, pointing to the island marked on it. According to the normal logarithm, we need to stay here for a year to store magnetic energy. That island is called Little Garden. Ron stood at the bow, his black trench coat fluttering in the sea breeze. His deep gaze pierced through the sea mist, as if he could see directly into the conspiracy unfolding on the island. Mr. 3 from Baroque Works, along with his partner Miss Valentine and others, had already laid a trap. and two manipulated giant warriors awaited their arrival. "No, we're not going to the island," Ron said suddenly. His voice calm but unwavering. Huh. Nami looked up in surprise. "Why does it mean?" "We're not going to dig for treasure this time." Ron tapped lightly on the hulls, using rapid magnetic recording of the pointer. "A day's stay near the shore will suffice." He explained to Nami, "Let's not dig this time. We can come back later, because we have more important things to do." Everyone on deck gathered around. Luffy tilted his head. "What's more important besides? I want to go to the islands. Maybe there will be some interesting adventures." Ron's gaze swept across each of his comrades' faces. "We're already under the watchful eyes of Marine headquarters." Aokiji's appearance is a warning, his voice lowered. This time it was Aokiji who upholds lazy justice. "So we were lucky if next time it's Kizaru or Akinu." "We won't be so lucky," he didn't finish speaking. But everyone understood the danger. Zoro's three swords unconsciously emitted a soft hum. And Sanji frowned in deep thought, oblivious to the cigarette burning down to his fingers. "More importantly, our current strength is insufficient to confront an admiral head-on. Even brother Ron can't do it." Luffy looked up at Ron, his eyes filled with hope. Ron shook his head. "I can contend with him. But I can't defeat him in a short time. Besides, I'm not alone if I'm tied down. Even if the Navy reinforcements arrive, I won't be able to get all of you back safely." This statement resonated with everyone. It truly is. Captain Ron has the strength to rival an admiral. But they are not alone but a group. So once they are surrounded and attacked by the arriving Navy, they will definitely not be able to escape. Ron gazed at the distant horizon. "So we'll change our original route. We'll only make a necessary stop in the little garden, then head straight to Drum Kingdom." A deeper meaning flashed in his eyes. "The companions we need are there, a new crewmates." Luffy jumped up first, his eyes shining brightly under his straw hat. "Who is it? Who is it? Is it Big Strong?" The deck suddenly became lively. Usopp's long nose twitched excitedly. Could she be a skilled sniper? Although Zoro didn't speak, he noticeably slowed down his sword-sheathing motion. Listening intently, Sanji elegantly exhaled a smoke ring. "I hope it's a beautiful lady." Ron chuckled softly, seeing the expectant looks on his friends' faces. "He's a reindeer named Chopper." Seeing the surprised expressions on everyone's faces, he continued to explain, "But don't underestimate him. He's an amazing doctor who ate the human fruit, allowing him to think and speak like a human." "The ship's doctor," Nami clapped her hands in surprise. "Great, we'll finally have a proper doctor." As she turned to Usopp, "Before, we relied entirely on your mediocre medical skills. Every bandage hurt like hell." Usopp scratched his head sheepishly. I'm not a professional to begin with." Zoro nodded in agreement. "A rare occurrence for him, indeed. The last time you stitched my wound, the threads were all knotted." Sanji couldn't help but complain. "And the medicine you concocted is so bitter it could kill you." Usopp's face flushed red. "You heartless bastards. If it weren't for me you would have already." "All right. All right," Ron chuckled, interrupting their bickering. "The important thing is, Chopper is not only a highly skilled doctor, but he can also develop miracle cures." He gestured towards the cabin. "Our medical bay has been empty lately. It'll come in handy when he arrives." Luffy was already jumping excitedly on the deck. "Doctor Reindeer, that's so cool. Does he like cotton candy?" Ron nodded. Chopper did indeed like cotton candy. Then his expression suddenly turned serious. "But right now, Chopper's country is under threat from an evil king." "Smash him!" Luffy threw a punch without hesitation, his eyes blazing with fighting spirit. "How dare they bully our new crewmates? Absolutely unforgivable." Zoro's hand was already on the hilt of his sword. "I just happened to have the urge to cut someone down." Sanji stubbed out his cigarette. "That be ****D who bullied the doctor is unforgivable." Even Usopp showed off his muscles for the first time. "Ha ha ha. My super strong fishman physique is perfect for a test." Nami unfolds the nautical chart, Drum Kingdom. At our current speed we'll reach Little Garden in half a day. Then spend a day storing the magnetism, then we should arrive at Drum Kingdom by noon the day after tomorrow. Waiwei stood to the side, seemingly wanting to say something but then stopping herself. Although she was burning with anxiety to return to Alabasta as soon as possible. She knew she couldn't force it, she forced a smile. Let's save Dr. Chopper first, the Alabasta situation. Can wait a little longer, Ra, noticing her unease, gently reassured her, don't worry, it won't take long. Once we've dealt with the Drum Kingdom, we'll head straight to Alabasta. Yes, thank you, Captain, on the Azure Sea. The starship slowly anchored at the shore of the small garden. Its gilded hull gleamed in the setting sun, and its diamond decorations reflected a dazzling light, making it look like a palace floating on the sea from afar. In the shadowy jungle, Mr. 3 pushed up his 3-shaped glasses, his fingertips dripping with white wax from his wax fruit powers. Finally here, he smiled coldly, while Miss Valentine beside him holding a small parasol wore a similarly cruel smile, the Straw Hat Pirates. Mr. 3 gritted his teeth, a disgrace to the pirates. They actually colluded with Admiral Aokiji to destroy our base on Whiskey Peak. Miss Valentine twirled her umbrella gracefully. What's even more despicable is that Miss Wednesday is actually Princess Vivi of Alabasta. A cold glint flashed in her eyes. Mr. Zero has ordered that she be captured alive. The Baroque Works agents around them nodded, their weapons gleaming coldly in the shadows of the trees. A burly man wearing a horned helmet grinned maliciously. Let's finish them off on this island. Let these arrogant newcomers experience the cruelty of the Grand Line. However, as time ticked by, the starship on the shore remained completely still. Mr. 3 frowned. What's going on? Why haven't they disembarked yet? I don't know. Have we been exposed? Impossible. Our operation is absolutely secret. It's impossible for it to be exposed. Are they scared? Maybe, then let's wait a little longer. As the sun set and the last rays disappeared below the horizon, a scene that enraged all the ambushers unfolded. A bonfire was lit on the deck of the starship. The sizzling sound of grilling meat could be faintly heard, and the enticing aroma wafted through the jungle on the wind. Luffy's laughter, Usopp's exaggerated boasting, Sanji's elegant toasting, and even music could all be clearly heard. Hey, look. An agent pointed at the starship, swallowing hard. They're having a banquet on the decks. Luffy was feasting on a whole roasted cow. Zoro was drinking fine wine. Sanji was elegantly pouring red wine for the ladies. Nami and Vivi were chatting and laughing by the campfire. Even the usually serious Rune was leaning against the ship's railing, holding a wine glass and admiring the moonlight. Damn it. Mr. 3 was so angry that the wax dripped even faster. We're lying in ambush here, our backs are aching. And they're enjoying themselves. Miss Valentine's Day nearly crushed her parasol. This is the greatest insult to us in the jungle. The people from the Baroque Studio were lying in ambush, started to feel their stomachs growling uncontrollably. The aroma of roasted meat grew stronger and stronger, and some of them even began to drool. Someone said pitifully, could we get something to eat too? Shut up, Mr. 3 roared, but his stomach also let out a rumble. What's even more infuriating is that Usopp seems to have noticed their presence, deliberately holding up a golden brown, juicy roasted lamb leg and waving it towards the jungle. Ah, tilde smells so good. The crispy outside and tender inside texture, tilde, damn it. An agent, barely able to contain himself, was about to stand up. He had enough. However, he was quickly restrained. Get down, idiot, Mr. 3 hurriedly pulled him back. Now is not the time to expose ourselves. We'll move in when they've eaten, drunk their fill, and are asleep. Everyone nodded fiercely, secretly vowing in their hearts, prepare to die. Straw Hat Boy. As the first rays of morning sunlight pierced through the dense bushes of the small garden, Mr. 3 rubbed his aching neck and got up from the ground. His glasses were askew, and his meticulously styled hair was covered in leaves and dirt. The sudden drowsiness of the previous night had caused them all to fall asleep without realizing it. Hiss, he gasped, suddenly realizing something, and lunged towards the shore. Where is he? Where's Straw Hat Boy? The shoreline before me was deserted, with only a few rocks eroded and crushed by the waves as proof that ships had once anchored here. The starship's dazzling golden hull and diamond-adorned mast had all vanished without a trace. No, where are they? This is impossible, Mr. 3 screamed hysterically, his wax fruit power spiraling out of control, forming unsightly clumps of wax around him. How could they have slipped away right under our noses? Miss Valentine emerged disheveled from the bushes, her little parasol covered in tree sap and bird droppings. Disgusting, that wretched Straw Hat Boy. Made us wait all night for nothing. A diversionary tactic, Mr. 3 gritted his teeth, his 3-shaped glasses reflecting a chilling glint of anger. Those bastards deliberately used the banquet to distract us, then took the opportunity to escape. The other agents woke up one after another, each looking disheveled and with messy hair. They stared blankly around with dark circles under their eyes, completely unable to believe what they were seeing. We kept watch all night, so they'd already run away. I don't even know when they left. An agent suddenly pointed to the sea. Look. There are words there, looking in that direction. Everyone saw a row of words spelled out with candles floating on the distant sea, trying to ambush people. Go to sleep, you idiots, Usopp's message. Mr. 3 trembled with rage, wax dripping down his face like sweat. This is blatant mockery. Mrs. Face was ashen on Valentine's Day, Mr. 0 will not forgive our failure at this time. Dozens of nautical miles away on the starship, a gentle sea breeze caressed the deck as the rising sun cast golden rays, and everyone enjoyed the relaxed morning. Ha. Usopp laughed so hard he rolled around on the deck, waving his arms exaggeratedly. You should have seen the looks on those guys' faces. I even used special ink to leave a message on the rocks. Zoro leaned against the ship's railing, wiping his sword, a rare smile playing on his lips. Those guys have no perseverance. I hadn't even finished my drink before they were all asleep, snoring louder than a lecherous cook. Green-haired guy, what did you say? You want to fight? Sanji was furious. Oh, you want to fight? Zoro grinned. I'd love to, but you've got a new move. You wait. Nami carefully examined the treasure map in her hand, then sighed regretfully. What a pity about the treasure in the little garden. I'll have to wait for another chance to dig it up. She carefully put the treasure map away. Ron stood before the steering wheel, turned to look at Nami, and smiled gently in his eyes. Don't be discouraged. As long as we keep growing stronger, the treasures of the entire ocean await our discovery. Such a vast ocean with countless islands. There's no end to the treasure hunting. Nami's eyes lit up instantly, her short orange hair dancing joyfully in the sunlight. Really? She excitedly grabbed Ron's arm. Then it's a promise. Captain, you'll take me to dig up treasures all over the sea. Ron chuckled and ruffled her hair, a tender gesture that made Nami blush involuntarily. It's a deal. Luffy stretched out his arm and put it around their shoulders. I want to come too. Adventure is the most fun. Sanji lit a cigarette and elegantly exhaled a smoke ring. I'll prepare the best treasure hunting bento box. Usopp jumped up, brandishing his slingshot. My 8,000 men will protect you. Zoro sheathed all 3 swords simultaneously with a crisp clang. Perfect timing to practice my new moves. Vivi stood to the side watching her energetic companions, a look of envy unconsciously appearing in her eyes. Karoo duck quacked at her feet, seemingly infected by the joyful atmosphere. Ron adjusted the steering wheel, and the starship's engines emitted a pleasant hum. Attention all crew. Next stop, Drum Kingdom. Oh. The crowd responded in unison, with its gilded sails fully unfurled in the morning breeze. The starship cut through the azure sea, speeding towards the direction indicated by the pointer. Under the sunlight, the starboard statue on the bow gleamed. A Drum Kingdom. This place is covered in snow all year round, and the biting cold wind howls past carrying ice crystals. The starship slowly docks at the frozen harbor, and the ship's hull makes a crisp crack sound as it collides with the floating ice. Achoo, Nami pulled her thick down coat tighter. Her nose red from the cold. It's so cold. If Brother Ron hadn't prepared winter clothes in advance, we would have frozen to death here. Zoro's breath condensed in the air, and a thin layer of frost formed on all three swords. This damn place is freezing. Sanji lit a cigarette, only to find the lighter was frozen and barely working. Damn it. It's not even enjoyable to smoke in this weather, Luffy. On the other hand, was full of energy. Jumping around on the deck, wow, it's snow, how fun. He reached out to catch the falling snowflakes, but because of his rubber body, the snowflakes stuck directly to his hands. Usopp suddenly straightened up and patted his chest triumphantly. Ha ha ha. You weaklings, he boasted, showing off that he was only wearing a thin shirt. Thanks to my fishman constitution, this little bit of cold is nothing with that. He gracefully flipped off the boat, landing steadily on the snow-covered dock. The snow crunched as it rose above his calves. The air is so fresh, Usopp exclaimed, taking a deep, exaggerated breath. He turned and waved towards the ship. Hey, you guys get off here, his shouts abruptly stopped. With a whooshing sound, dozens of arrows suddenly shot out from the surrounding snowdrifts and embedded themselves deeply in the ice at Usopp's feet. Who goes there? Usopp was so startled that he stumbled and almost fell into a snowdrift. From the surrounding snow, more than 20 fully armed soldiers slowly emerged. They wore heavy fur armor and carried spears and bows and arrows. The bearded man at the head of the group shouted sternly, "Outsiders, the Drum Kingdom does not welcome you. Leave immediately." The soldiers formed an encirclement, their sharp spear tips gleaming coldly in the snow. Even more terrifying in the distant snow slope, several cannons could be vaguely seen already aimed at the starship. Nami immediately hid behind Ron. Oh no. We've run into this as soon as we got off the ship. Zoro's three swords were already drawn, the frost on their blades shattered by his haki. Shall we make a move? Luffy adjusted his straw hat, a rare serious expression on his face. Don't attack yet. We're just here to find the ship's doctor. Enough nonsense, the bearded soldier interrupted. Since Captain Dalton issued the decree, no foreign ships are allowed to dock, he raised his spear. Final warning, leave immediately, otherwise, boom. Before he could finish speaking, a loud bang suddenly came from afar. Everyone turned to look and saw that on the highest peak of the Drum Kingdom, the spire of a castle had collapsed with a crash, and billowing black smoke was particularly conspicuous on the snow-covered mountaintop. Oh no, something's happened. The soldiers panicked. Oh no, it's Doriel's castle, Ron. His expression unchanged, gazed at the rising black smoke in the distance and calmly spoke. Looks like we've arrived just in time. He turned to the soldier snow in disarray and said in a steady, firm voice, Listenwi can help. It seems Walpo has returned and is attacking the castle. What? The soldiers erupted in chaos, their faces filled with terror and anger. They exchanged bewildered glances, and one of them said in a trembling voice, Captain Dalton isn't here. Has something really happened at the castle? Just then, a soldier covered in snow stumbled in from a distance, panting, shouting, it's terrible, Wapol. Wapol is back. That guy is destroying the castle, Captain Dalton. He's going to be killed. These words were like a bomb exploding among the soldiers. The previously hesitant soldiers instantly turned red. And angry roars rose and fell. That damned king. He still has the nerve to come back. Quickly save Captain Dalton. The bearded soldier at the head of the group whirled around, ignoring Ron and his men and roared, spear in hand, brothers. Rescue Captain Dalton, charge, charge. The soldiers shouted in unison, grabbing their weapons and sprinting through the thick snow toward the hilltop castle. In the blink of an eye, only Ron and his group remained on the dock. Nami watched the departing soldiers, then looked at Ron, somewhat bewildered. This was all so sudden. What do we do now? Ron's lips curled into a knowing smile. Let's go, let's follow them and see. He straightened his collar, which had been ruffled by the cold wind. It's time to save our future ship's doctor, the reindeer Dr. Chopper. Awesome, Luffy jumped up excitedly. Snow falling from his straw hat, the adventure begins. Zoro's 3 swords are ready, perfect for warming up. Usopp also said no problem. Sanji lit a cigarette and looked at Vivi and Nami. Nami. Never mind, beautiful Vivi. Would you like me to carry you up the mountains? Enough talk, Nami grabbed Vivi's hand. Let's hurry and catch up, Ron led the way. His robes fluttering in the wind and snow. His eyes gleaming with confidence. Attention everyone. Target the mountaintop castle, let's go. The group trudged through the thick snow, following the footprints left by the soldiers. The cold wind howled, and snowflakes stung their faces like knives. But everyone was full of fighting spirit. As the altitude increased, the wind and snow intensified, and the distant castle's firelight became particularly striking. The sounds of fighting and the loud crashes of collapsing rubble could also be faintly heard. Just then Nami suddenly stopped in her tracks. The ultimate treasure hunting system had generated a new treasure map. She took out the treasure map that was glowing faintly from the system interface. The originally blurry lines on the map were gradually becoming clearer, eventually converging into a striking red mark, the castle on the mountaintop. This is too much of a coincidence. Nami's exclamation was carried away by the cold wind. She hurriedly caught up with Ron's. Holding the treasure map in front of him, Ron, look. The system just generated a new treasure location. Right over at the castle, Ron glanced at the blueprints. A knowing glint in his eyes, just as I thought. He looked up at the mountaintops. The outline of a castle faintly visible through the snow. Looks like we'll not only rescue Chopper this time, but also stumble upon some treasure. Usopp immediately perked up upon hearing this. What treasure? He leaned closer, staring intently at the treasure map, his long nose practically poking into it. It's not going to be something scary again, is it? Who cares? Luffy craned his neck for a glance and shouted excitedly. We're going to the castle anyway. So treasure would be even better, Zoro scoffed. Hopefully we'll find something decent this time. And no more random ghosts. Nami carefully put the treasure map away, her eyes gleaming with determination, no matter what. We're going to the castle, she looked at Ron. This time you have to keep your word and help me dig for the treasure. Ron chuckled softly, reaching out to brush the snowflakes from her hair, of course. But now his gaze shifted to the mountaintop, the castle's firelight reflecting in his deep pupils. Let's deal with that Walpo problem first. When the group braved the blizzard to reach the mountaintop castle, the sight before them made their hearts tighten. Wounded soldiers lay scattered everywhere, their blood staining the snow a glaring red. Dalton, leaning on his broken sword, knelt on one knee, a gruesome wound gushing from his chest. Yet he still stood defiantly in front of the crowd. Quick. Run on the other side of the battlefield. A blue-nosed reindeer is confronting a bulky man. Chopper was covered in Wunshi's fur scorched black, and he could barely stand on one leg. Yet he still stubbornly stood in front of the injured doctor. Curejos halatas. Walpo's maniacal laughter echoed through the snowstorm. This country doesn't need doctors. Even though you're just a reindeer. If you're going to be a doctor, then die. He opened his exaggeratedly large mouth, and a cannonball roared out. Chopper tried his best to dodge, but was thrown to the ground by the shockwave of the explosion, leaving a long trail in the snow. Chopper. You brat, get out of here, Dr. Doriel exclaimed. Wapol grinned maliciously as he reloaded. Let's see how you dodge this time. At this critical moment, a dark figure appeared like a ghost. Ron was standing in front of Chopper, his right arm wrapped in black armament haki, and he caught the flying cannonball with his bare hands. What's Wapol's eyes widened. To everyone's astonishment, Ron clenched his fingers, and the cannonball was crushed. Boom. A deafening explosion followed by billowing smoke and sparks flying everywhere. Idiot, you idiots. Wapol snapped out of his daze, laughing maniacally. At this close range you'd be blown to bits, however. When the smoke cleared, Ron still stood tall. Not even a scratch on his clothes. He gently brushed the dust off his shoulders and turned to look at the dumbfounded Chopper. The best way to deal with scum like this. Ron's voice was calm yet powerful, is not defense. He slowly turned towards Walpo, each step leaving deep footprints in the snow. To knock him away. To thoroughly bait him so he'd never dare to misbehave again. Chopper's round eyes widened even more. Tears welling up in them. You, why did you? Ron didn't answer but continued walking towards Walpo, his trench coat fluttering in the wind and snow. The invisible pressure making the surrounding snowflakes seem to freeze. Yuzup, standing nearby, was also shocked. He crushed a cannonball with his bare hands. Turns out the captain was even better at showing off than him. Wapol finally panicked. You stay away. He frantically stuffed weapons into his mouth. I'm going to blow you to blast me away. He spun his iron bucket-like body wildly. And shells roared out from all directions. Die. Die all of you, he roared hysterically. As shells blasted deep craters in the snow, however, Ron moved through the hail of bullets as if strolling in a garden. His observation haki had already reached the intermediate level, and the trajectory of each shell was clearly visible to him. Sometimes he would just turn his body slightly to the side, and the shells would whiz past him. Other times he would tilt his head slightly, and the shockwave from the explosion wouldn't even disturb a single hair on his head. Too slow, Ron commented casually, his tone tinged with boredom. Finally, he lost interest in dodging. As the next shell approached, he extended his hand, which was wrapped in armament haki, and his 5 fingers gripped the shell firmly like iron clamps. With a muffled boom, the shell exploded in his palm. But it didn't even leave a scratch. This is impossible, Wapol retreated in horror, the metal barrel leaving deep marks on the snow. Ron approached step by step, casually catching 3 more shells and crushing them as easily as cracking walnuts. The flashes of the explosions illuminated his cold profile, and his robes fluttered in the shockwave. Have you had enough fun? Ron suddenly accelerated, appearing in front of Wapol in an instant, under the other's terrified gaze. He picked up an unfired cannonball and shoved it directly into Wapol's wide-open mouth. Walpo's eyes widened, his barrel-shaped body frozen comically in place. Swallow it and let it explode, Ron said calmly. And with a slight force, the shell was pushed into Wapol's throat. The next second, a muffled boom came from Wapol's body. Although his metal barrel wasn't blown apart, the violent impact still made his eyes roll back, and exaggerated bulges appeared on the metal, finally. With a thud, he collapsed onto the snow and completely lost consciousness. The entire mountaintop fell silent instantly, with only the sound of wind and snow howling. Chopper stood frozen in place, his big, round eyes filled with shock and adoration. He looked at the unconscious Wappleton, at the unharmed Ron, his little hooves trembling involuntarily. This person, is he the savior? Dalton struggled to his feet, ignoring the wound on his chest, and solemnly bowed to Ron. Thank you. Thank you for your help, Your Excellency. The Drum Kingdom will forever remember your kindness. The surrounding soldiers also stood up, and despite their injuries, they all looked at Ron with gratitude and felt ashamed for having stopped them. Ron simply nodded, turned, and walked towards Chopper. He knelt down in front of the little reindeer and took a vial of medicine from his pocket. Your injury needs treatment. Chopper Flattered took a half step back, then mustered his courage and stepped forward again. Thank you, he stammered, circling around. Then suddenly exclaimed, as if remembering something. I'm a doctor, I can handle it myself. A gentle smile flickered in Ron's eyes. I know. And soon you'll be our ship's doctor. Chopper was completely stunned, his blue nose still covered in unmelted snowflakes, and his big round eyes widened even further. A ship? A ship's doctor? Are you inviting me aboard? His voice trembled, and his little hooves unconsciously traced circles on the ground. No one had ever treated him as a true companion, let alone invited him onto the ship. At that moment, he felt his heart pounding. and his eyes involuntarily welled up with tears. Luffy and his crew arrived just then and surrounded them. Luffy grabbed his straw hat and flashed a bright smile. Hey. Reindeer, come be our partner, I. Chopper spun around helplessly, looking at Dr. Kureha standing to the side for help. Dorial, a cigarette dangling from her lips, waved her hand impatiently. Whatever, you brat. I'm fed up with you already. Always causing trouble in the castle. She deliberately put on a stern face. Now that someone's willing to take you in, you'd better get lost, Dr. Kureha. Chopper's tears finally burst forth and he wailed. He knew Dr. Kureha too well. This was clearly the deepest love. He wiped away his tears forcefully and shouted, I will definitely come back to see you. What the hell are you looking at? Dorial turned and walked towards the castle, waving her hand behind her back. Don't come back and embarrass yourself until you've become a world-renowned doctor. Chopper straightened his small body and nodded solemnly. I will definitely become the best doctor. Dorial paused slightly, a barely perceptible smile playing on her lips, before striding into the castle, the heavy wooden door slamming shut behind her. In the time that followed, Chopper suppressed his sadness at parting and used his superb medical skills to treat the wounded Dalton and the soldiers. His movements were so skillful that there was no trace of the bravery he had shown in the battle just moments before. Taking advantage of the brief lull, Nami quietly tugged at Ron's sleeve, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Hey, shouldn't we go treasure hunting now? The treasure map shows the location is near the castle. Ron glanced at Chopper, who was busy at work, then looked towards the majestic castle in the distance, and nodded gently. Let's go. Let's see what we can dig up this time, treasure hunting. Luffy's ears twitched and he immediately perked up. Usopp and Sanji exchanged glances, their expressions gradually shifting from hesitation to eager anticipation. It's been so long since I've gone treasure hunting. How about we go take a look? Usopp rubbed his hands together, a rare hint of excitement in his eyes. We're just killing time anyway, don't we go check it out? What if we really find some treasure this time? Exactly. Exactly, Luffy jumped up. Maybe we can dig out some super amazing meat. Zoro crossed his arms and snorted coldly. Wasn't the lesson from digging up the ghost last time enough? But his eyes involuntarily glanced towards Nami. Hands on her hips, her short orange hair shimmering in the sunlight, declared, Oh, TMPH. This time I'm definitely going to dig up a real treasure. And a super big one at that. She deliberately swept her defiant gaze over the crowd. If you're scared, then don't come. After saying that, she grabbed Ron's hand and started walking out of the castle. Ron smiled helplessly and let her pull him through the castle gate. Outside, Chopper was intently bandaging Dalton's wound, his little hooves deftly wrapping the bandages. Seeing the two hurrying by, he looked up curiously. Do you need any help? No needs. Nami waved her hand without turning her head. You keep doing what you're doing. The two quickly arrived at a spot 2 meters to the left of the castle gate, where the snow had been cleared away, revealing the hard frozen ground. Nami carefully unfolded the treasure map, confirming it several times. This is it. Luffy and his crew couldn't resist their curiosity and sneakily followed, hiding behind a nearby snowdrift to peek. It's starting. Nami took a deep breath, and the treasure map in her hand suddenly burst into a dazzling golden light, transforming into that familiar golden shovel. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Nami raised her golden shovel and forcefully plunged it into the frozen ground. The moment the shovel tip sank into the ground, a blinding purple light suddenly burst forth from the crack. What? Nami exclaimed in surprise, the golden shovel in her hand turning into specks of light and disappearing into the air. She stared in shock at the scene before her. Why is it purple light? Ron also showed a rare expression of shock, and subconsciously stepped forward to protect Nami. Last time with golden light unearthed a great general. What will this strange purple light bring this time? Luffy and the other hiding behind a snowdrift were utterly dumbfounded. Usopp's teeth chattered. Purple and purple. Could it be something even scarier than a ghost? The purple beam of light grew stronger and stronger, almost illuminating the entire square in front of the castle. Chopper and Dalton were also drawn by this strange phenomenon. Forgetting about bandaging themselves, they stumbled over to investigate. What's going on? Chopper's blue nose twitched, instinctively feeling uneasy. Just when everyone was on the edge of their seats, the purple light suddenly receded, and an exquisite scroll slowly rose from the ground. The scroll is engraved with ancient patterns and inlaid with purple gemstones at both ends. Radiating a soft glow, Nami reached out her hand trembling, and the mysterious scroll slowly fell into her grasp. The moment she touched it, detailed information about the purple scroll appeared on the system's blue screen. Devil Fruit Ability Transfer Scroll. Function: can transfer the devil fruit abilities of the target. Nami's pupils contracted sharply, and her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the scroll that shimmered with a purplish gold light. She examined the text on the scroll again and again, and after confirming that it was correct, she exclaimed in shock once more, "This. How is this possible, Brother Ron, you have to come and see. I've seen it, it's definitely a treasure, my God." Nami looked up at Ron abruptly, her voice trembling with excitement. This scroll can actually transfer other people's devil fruit abilities. That's insane. I've never heard of such a thing existing in the world. Ron took the scroll and examined it carefully, a glint of shrewdness flashing in his deep eyes. We've really struck gold this time. Long, slender fingers gently traced the ancient patterns on the scroll. It can transfer devil fruit abilities, somewhat similar to Blackbeard's dark fruit. However, when he saw the label disposable item, he frowned slightly. It's a pity it can only be used once. Just then, a system notification sounded in his mind. Ding, rare item acquisition detected in subsystem, triggering a 10x reward. Obtained devil fruit ability transfer scroll times 10. Ron's heart skipped a beat. It was finally here, a tenfold reward. That's rare. Previously it was either ghosts or pointers given by ghosts, or the discovery of an admiral. Ron even doubted that he would get 10 times the return from Nami. I can't believe it, it's finally here. I was originally planning to carefully preserve the precious scroll that Nami found, but now I don't have to worry about it at all. He has 10 of these incredible items. What's wrong? Nami noticed the change in Ron's expression and asked curiously. Ron smiled mysteriously. It's nothing, I just feel there's no need to keep this scroll. Converting it into strength as soon as possible is the best choice. At the same time, Chopper, who had just finished bandaging Dalton's wound, curiously approached. He stood on tiptoe, his little blue nose twitching. What's this? It looks so pretty. Nami crouched down, excitedly showing Chopper the purple gold scroll. This is an incredibly powerful treasure. She lowered her voice and said mysteriously, it can transfer other people's devil fruit abilities. What? Chopper took 2 steps back in shock, covering his mouth with his little hooves. Transfer devil fruit power. His large eyes were filled with disbelief. Doesn't that mean it can also take away my abilities? Chopper was shocked. If his powers were taken away, he would truly turn back into a speechless reindeer. Ron chuckled as he watched Chopper's exaggerated reaction. He looked up at the gradually clearing sky in the distance, already calculating the best time to use the scrolls. With these incredible items, the journey ahead will be much smoother. However, right now there is a pretty good ability. Nami suddenly looked at Chopper as if she remembered something. By the way, Chopper, have you packed your luggage? We're about to set off. Chopper, as if waking from a dream, hurriedly ran towards the castle. I'll go get it right now. She took a couple of steps, then suddenly stopped, turned around and shouted. Her face flushed. It's not because I want to go with you that I'm in such a hurry. Idiot. Just then Luffy and Vivi, who had been hiding behind a snowdrift and peeking, finally couldn't contain themselves and rushed over in a swarm. Hey, we heard you. Luffy craned his neck and leaned close to Nami, his rubber face almost touching the purple gold scroll. A scroll that can steal someone else's devil fruit power. Really? Usopp's long nose twitched exaggeratedly, and his eyes nearly bulged out. Good heavens. Does that mean we can just steal anyone's ability if we want it? That's so unfair. Vivi stared in shock at the scroll in Nami's hand. That's an outrageous ability, so amazing. Nami proudly waved the scroll in her hand. That's right. With this scroll, I can transfer the abilities of any devil fruit user to myself. Sanji's cigarette fell to the ground with a thud. He stared intently at the scroll in Nami's hand, his eyes gleaming with an unprecedented light. Miss Nami, you mean anyone's ability will do? Sanji immediately became extremely excited, because his dream is to master the power of the clear fruit. But I was always worried that someone else would get it. So I was always anxious and uneasy, but now everything has changed. A transparent fruit. His voice trembled with excitement as he looked at Nami and asked again. Then the clear fruit I've always dreamed of. No matter who eats it, I can get it back. Tilda. Nami winked mischievously theoretically. It really is possible, although Zoro appeared calm. His grip on his sword tightened unconsciously. HMPH. If I come across a suitable swordsman sword fruit, I might as well give it a try. However, the next second, Sanji suddenly deflated like a punctured balloon. But Miss Nami only has one scroll, right? He clutched his blonde hair in anguish. So many people want it. Nami nodded. There was only one. And it was a one-time use item. Sigh. Sanji dejectedly picked up the cigarette butt from the ground. Looks like I'll just have to keep getting beaten up and try to get as many invisibility ability trial cards as possible. Just as everyone was expressing their regret, Ron suddenly chuckled. Who said there was only one? Then a system light screen appeared before my eyes, and with a tapped and purple gold scrolls appeared in my hand. In the sunlight, and scrolls, gleaming with a mysterious purple light, were neatly stacked in his hands, radiating a breathtaking purple glow. They were so tempting. The reward is doubled this time. Ron's lips curled into a slight smile. While Nami received the scroll, I also got 10 WH. What? Everyone exclaimed in unison. The sound so loud that the snow on the castle fell in a flurry. Sanji's reaction was the most exaggerated. He immediately knelt down, cupped his hands to his heart, and his eyes shone with hearts. Captain Ron, I love you to death. He then lunged forward to kiss Ron's boots. Get lost. Ron kicked him away disdainfully, but his eyes were filled with amusement. Luffy, Chopper has a devil fruit ability, so that's fine. Nami has her own, and everyone else can get one at most. The rest should be saved for emergencies. Usopp danced with excitement. Awesome. I'm going to find the most powerful devil fruit ability. Luffy tilted his head and thought for a moment. I still prefer my gum fruit tilde. Zoro cautiously accepted the scroll. This should be used with care. Vivi stared in surprise at the scroll in her hand, then looked excitedly at Ron. I have one too.